Yo, what's good everybody, it's Big Taco. I'm here bringing you guys What If Deku Had the Sharingan the movie. Now, this is the official movie that I promised you guys would be covering a bunch of new parts. This is a movie that will be covering a bunch of older parts. This is about to be, I don't know, I think around an hour or something long. And it's just going to be a compilation of all the other parts to catch everybody up who probably hasn't even seen the series or who just wants to see the series again in a compilation. Anyways, I'm not going to hold you guys up for too long. Hopefully you guys enjoy the movie, and What If Deku Had the Sharingan, the new movie, will be coming out very soon.
What if Deku was born with the Sharingan? Wait, huh? First of all, we'll have to establish some ground rules. Alright. Deku, in this universe, is born with a quirk. This quirk is chakra. Deku has energy flowing within him. Alright, now, everybody in our new My Hero Academia universe has it as well. But Deku is the only one that accesses it directly, okay? We're gonna say that everybody else in the My Hero Academia universe manifests their chakra in the ability of specially tailored quirks. And the way that the chakra got passed down into the world is when somebody ate a chakra fruit. I don't know who, I didn't think it out this well, I just really want Deku to have the Sharingan so we can get on with the story. Right. He ate the chakra fruit, he, she, whoever, ate the chakra fruit, and passed it down through the bloodstream onto a new generation. Alright, now the chakra's out of the way, let's get on to how Deku was born with the Sharingan and how they figured out it was the Sharingan. Alright. Deku was born with the Sharingan. He was the first human to manifest a Keki Genkai in the form of a dojutsu. Nobody in this universe knows what a Keki Genkai or a dojutsu is. They just think he's the first person to have a quirk without having a body transforming quirk. First of all, like his eyes change without him having to look a certain way, like Suyu, she's a frog and she has frog eyes, like things like that. He has the eyes of a demon, they think, but he doesn't have a demon quirk. Alright. When Deku was first born, he came out crying heavily, and when the doctors went to eye check him, they saw the eyes of a demon, a red eye, its pupil a small black dot, and around the outside of the eye a thin dark iris with a black teardrop looking pupil attached to it. But suddenly, as soon as the doctor was done checking out these strange eyes, the baby calmed down, and the eye changed into the green look of his mother's. This astonished the doctors, who demanded, once the child was out of the hospital, that she would bring him for regular quirk checkups. They thought that they had discovered a new special kind of eye quirk that didn't stem from a body transforming quirk, like Suyu, you know, that frog girl. A few years go by with checkups until around the time for Deku to enter preschool. All of the doctors he's been to noticed that Deku's mother said the only time that Deku ever activated his quirk is when he's in a highly emotional state like sadness or anger. That's how the Sharingan is usually activated, so I added this into the story. And also, I know the guy name isn't Deku yet, it's Izuku, but I call him Deku because, like, Izuku's trash, bro. That's a trash name, dog. And anyway, back up to the story. The one time the doctor saw the quirk is when Deku was walking into the room and stubbed his foot on the side of something, causing him great pain and activating his eyes. The doctor captured it all because he was recording his encounter with a webcam attached to his desk. He looked into the footage, and it looked like a spin wheel eye when the quirk was starting up, and it looked sort of hypnotizing to him. Because of this, that very same day, the doctor ran some tests while the eye was still active to see if Deku's perception had changed, and it did greatly. Deku was ultra perceptive, saying things before they would happen and reading letters that were damn near microscopic. And while the doctor was taking notes of these things, he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. Deku was mimicking his every moment precisely. His eye was copying him. He finally came up with a name for this phenomenon. He called it the Sharingan, meaning copy wheel eye. What if Deku had the Sharingan Part 1? Alright, because of the part 0 of this series was so successful, I decided to go on and push it out there as a full series. We covered how Deku had the Sharingan and why it was unique. For the next few years in Deku's life, his eye quirk would prove to be more than useful. When he could of course activate it, allowed him to see things way better than any other person could, and he could copy the actions of people quickly and easily. Bakugo doesn't really bully Deku because in this scenario, Deku would figure out what his quirk was, and he would tell people at his school the next day after he went to the doctors. He would effectively be like the first person in this class to have their quirks manifested. Bakugo kinda has a respect for Deku because of this. He still gives him the name Deku, giving it the meaning that Uraraka gave it in season 1, meaning like strong, because Deku was the first person to have the quirk, so yeah, Deku, that's strong to him. Even though Deku can't use his quirk properly, he still has one, and it sounds super cool. His eyes turn red, and he can see things way better and copy anything. That sounded so cool to Bakugo. And not soon after, Bakugo's quirk started to manifest along with a lot of the other kids at school. They don't really bully Deku, but one day, Bakugo falls down when playing, and Deku comes over and to help him. He puts his hands out and says, "Here, Bakugo, you alright?" For some reason, this kinda angers Bakugo. He becomes defensive, and right when he's about to tell Midoriya off for having a quirk that he can't even use, he looks at Deku, and he sees for some reason Deku's eyes are red. It was his quirk. Deku was telling the truth the whole time. They were red and scary. So, thanks, Deku, Bakugo says. He takes Midoriya's hands and pulls himself up. He still has his eyes fixed on Deku's eyes. But just then, Deku realized what happened. Deku realized what was happening. His quirk was activated. He flexed his eyes a bit. And with that, he saw Bakugo's hand go up and scratch his head slower than usual. This was the way he remembered how his quirk was. Before, everything was perfectly normal, but now it was just Deku just kept flexing his eyes while holding his breath. So that only lasted for about 30 seconds. When he breathed out, he began to feel his quirk disappear. He goes home that day and practices eye flexing, and one time out of around 1,000 flexes, it actually works. Deku accessed the Sharingan on purpose for the first time in his life. He could finally say with confidence, "I'm gonna be a hero just like All Might." He practiced accessing his quirk, and in leading up to the beginning of the show, Deku figured out when his eyes were activated, he gained a big boost in his all-around stats, giving him above average abilities of all kind. Stamina, strength, and his sight was just not comparable to any normal humans. in middle school, he had the full control of his quirk. Whenever anyone would try to bully him, he would just bust it out and glare at them menacingly. Deku in this what if isn't a shy wannabe hero. We know him as that, but in this, he's not really like that. He's kind of dark and edgy. I don't really want him to be like Sasuke, cause Sasuke's ass. I'm sorry, Sasuke fans. He's more like Killua from Hunter x Hunter. He's laid back and confident because he knows he can do what he can do. He can copy anything that anyone else can do as long as it's not quirk related. I saw a guy in the comment ask about if Deku could copy quirks, and I had no answer for that. But now that I think about it, no, Deku cannot copy quirks, because if you could be able to copy quirks, you would have to know what chakra is and what chakra natures are, and how to bring out chakra natures, and I just don't really want him to have that. Because if you could copy Eraserhead's quirk with the Sharingan, with Todoroki's quirk, just no, that's too much. Bakugo and him are enemies like at the beginning of the show, but they're more like rivals, like after they fought in season 3. Like, Bakugo respects Deku because he never lets himself get bullied and picked on. And Deku kinda has this cool vibe and swagger about him that Bakugo just likes, and is honestly kinda jealous of. And his quirk is really cool to Bakugo, he just thinks it's so unique. He doesn't even know how the quirk really works. And they were childhood friends, so he knows it's really different. So, the day comes when Bakugo is taken by the sludge villain. The teacher says that Bakugo wants to go to UA. And then he says, "Oh yeah, Midoriya, don't you?" Everyone in class all wanted to say something, but Bakugo was really the only one to step up and say something. "Yeah, and Deku, your quirk's cool and all. I just don't think it's UA material," Bakugo says. The class silently looks at Deku. They all agreed with what Bakugo said. Deku looks up and stares at Bakugo. "I could say the same thing about you," he says. And as soon as Bakugo was going to rebuttal, Deku, while still staring at Bakugo, turns on his eyes. Bakugo decides not to say anything anymore to Deku. Deku still gets pulled up from behind on by the villain, but this time it takes All Might a little longer to get there for some reason. And to save Deku, Deku's Sharingan is activated, but it's not enough. He's being consumed. And just when he thinks he's about to die, Deku feels a sharp pain in his eyes. First his right, then his left. A second Tomoe slowly curved itself out into Deku's eyeball. Deku, screaming in pain from his eyes and the suffocation, remembered his goals. To be like All Might, to become the strongest hero in the world. And he pushed and pushed, and right when he's about to be free, he heard a voice. It was All Might. He said there was no need to fear, for I am here. He zoomed past Deku, went behind the villain, and yelled out, "Smash!" This knocked Deku right out of the villain. And All Might proceeded to capture the villain like in the original. And Deku says to All Might, "Hey All Might, I'm a fan, and I want to ask you something. Do you think that I can become the #1 hero with a quirk like this?" Deku then turns on his one Tomoe Sharingan, not knowing how to turn on his second one. It's already gone, and he did it by accident. All Might then asked Deku, "What's your quirk all about anyway?" He says, "I can copy any action anyone makes. I kinda think it doesn't matter how fast. I'm not really sure though. And it kinda also boosts me physically as well, though only by a little." All Might then says, "It sounds like it depends on how strong the person wielding this quirk is, and how much of a boost of perception and physical abilities the wielder gets." Deku ponders what he's saying. "Oh my god, I never thought of that. What? How did I not think of that?" Deku thinks. All Might then looks at Deku and says, "To be frank, kid, your quirk sounds kinda strong, but looking at you, you're just not someone I think that would be... You know what? You don't look strong, kid. And I don't think you're someone that will benefit from a quirk like that. It could be a real force, but you as you are, not #1 material. In a few years, maybe." All Might then prepares to fly off. Deku's heart is broken. All Might said, even with a quirk as strong as his, it's useless if you're a weakling. Deku remembers something. Deku in this timeline still has a book, and he still is the bookworm, and he wants to be a hero, so he still has the hero notepad. He runs over to All Might and grabs his shirt just as All Might takes off. They go into the sky, and when they land, Deku asks, kinda depressed, "Can you sign my notebook, All Might?" All Might deflates. Just at that moment, everything still happens like in canon. Deku ends up in the crowd watching Bakugo as he's being suffocated, while none of the heroes budged. All Might couldn't do anything. You remember how he thought he was gonna die from being suffocated while watching Bakugo being suffocated. He thought he was gonna die. He feels his eyes pain up and his vision blur for half a second. Then he feels the burning sensation he felt earlier, but this time it was slightly weaker. It felt more like a light tingle. Deku then burst off past the heroes. Deku was quicker and faster than he ever was. The Sharingan Tier 2 is completely on a whole different level than the first Tomoe. He wasn't used to how fast he was moving. Before he knew it, he was behind the villain. Deku realized this and tried to claw Bakugo out from the back. Then the heroes noticed something. That kid was on the villain. They did not even see him move. They thought he had some sort of super speed quirk or something. Even All Might was surprised. He saw the kid with his regular eyes, but never with the two Tomoe. And he said that he felt something different with this child. He wasn't how he was before for some reason. All Might never expected his quirk to be that much of an enhancing quirk that he would make him as fast as he was, even for a guy who looked like a string of spaghetti. He never expected anything out of that from Deku. Well, he thought, he's still gonna need a lot of help if he's gonna become a hero even greater than myself. But he couldn't focus on that right now. He needed to save the kid before thinking about him as a candidate to become a successor to One for All. So, he used all the strength that was left over from the sledge villain encounter to buff back up and charge towards the villain. Then, Deku was finished clawing out Bakugo out of the sledge villain. He graded him out and jumped out of All Might's way. Deku could hear nothing at all. Not anything. All that he could hear, and all that anyone in the crowd could hear, was Detroit Smash! The villain was defeated. Deku smiled at All Might, who was still mid-swing. He turned to Bakugo, with his eyes still activated, and said, "You're welcome, explosions." Bakugo took a deep breath and said, "Thanks, Demon Eyes." He got his praise from the heroes, and when he was walking home, All Might yelled out his name. "Young Midoriya, I came here to thank you. If you hadn't moved, I would have been a bystander. You gave me the courage to go out there, even after I shattered your dreams and told you you wouldn't be number one. You still went out there." All Might looks at him and says, "Every hero has a story." Tears slowly drip from Deku's eyes. "I believe that you can become not just a hero, but the strongest hero that ever lived. With my help, Midoriya, you can do what you want. Save everyone." Deku then burst into tears. He rarely cries in this What If, but he still has a rough childhood. Even though it wasn't as rough as the Deku were originally accustomed to, he still didn't have as much friends at all, you know? People would hang out with him when he was little, but slowly everyone kept on leaving him because they were all kinda scared. Bakugo even changed when they entered middle school, leaving him to develop the way he was. He developed that kinda too cool for school attitude after Bakugo abandoned him. All Might then says to Deku, "Do you want to be the greatest hero of all time?" Well, that will be all for this part. If you want a part 2, let me know in the comments. You know, like, subscribe, all that fuck shit. I mean, all that fun jazz. And yeah, I worked pretty decently on the script. It took me a full day to write, you know. So Now, in part 1, we covered how Deku and All Might met, and how Deku was about to become a successor to One for All. So, we're gonna pick up to where All Might says, "Do you want to become the strongest hero of all time?" Deku immediately screams, "Yes, All Might, I do. What do I have to do, All Might?" he says. All Might looks him in the eyes and says, "You're gonna have to work your ass off. And then, maybe I'll gift you with something." So, the time comes to where Deku has beach training. Deku is not allowed to use his Sharingan during this beach training. He has to do it on pure strength alone. He has to do it on pure willpower and on his own merit. Deku is having a hard time at first. In the first 2 months, he's having a really hard time trying to push through that first barrier. After the 3rd month, he is clearing up the beach with ease. He's working really hard on it, and All Might allows him to use his Sharingan, and he says, "Hey kid, your quirk is really strong, but you don't seem to have good control over it, do you? You're gonna start off using the quirk as you regularly would to clean this beach, and if you don't clear it in 1 month, then I don't think you're hero material." So Deku gets to work. He works hard. In the first 15 days, it's not looking so good. How is he supposed to clear the entire beach in 1 month? Deku is stressing over this, and one day while he's clearing up the beach, he's so stressed out and it's so done. This is one of his last days. He only has 3 days left. It's been 27 days. He only has 3 days left. And Deku reaches deep into his soul, and he just, out of willpower, out of pure desire and need, his second Tomoe Sharingan comes to him. And for the first time, he isn't out of it. For the first time, he realized what was going on. For the first time, that tingle made sense to him. That burning sensation, the slight blindness that he gets every time the second Tomoe Sharingan activates, it made sense to him. This was the true power of his quirk. That wasn't his true power before. He can go even further beyond that. He can go plus ultra. So Deku, now with his 2 Tomoe Sharingan, clears up the beach in 3 days. And this what if, the 2 Tomoe Sharingan is way stronger than in Naruto universe. In this what if, the Sharingan gives a boost to your physical abilities as well as your perceptive abilities. So it's not just a perceptive enhancer, it's a physical enhancer as well. It makes you stronger, faster. It makes your brain think faster. It makes everything seem like it's in slow motion to you. So Deku clears up the beach in three days after he finally figures out what his Tomoe Sharingan is. And All Might asks him, "Turn on your quirk as you regularly would." He turns on the 1 Tomoe Sharingan. Then he says to Deku, "Turn on the quirk that you've been hiding from me this whole time." Deku says, "What? What do you mean hiding? What do you mean? I haven't been hiding anything from you, All Might. You know I wouldn't hide anything from you." Deku is trying to hide his quirk from All Might because Deku in this what if isn't as soft as the Deku we know. And he does have a quirk. Deku in this what if doesn't really want a handout from All Might. He wants to be his own hero. He wants to strive. He wants to prove to All Might that he will become the #1 hero. He doesn't want All Might to make him the #1 hero. Of course he will take All Might's help if he wants to train him, but he doesn't want All Might's quirk. Even though he doesn't know about it, he does not want All Might. He doesn't want to be All Might. He wants to be #1 like All Might. So, All Might says, show me the quirk that you've been hiding this whole time, Midoriya. Midoriya says, "It's not a different quirk, All Might. It's just my quirk, but enhanced. It's like you. You know how you have like different stages of power?" All Might nods his head. "Yeah." He says, "Well, this is my 2nd stage." And Deku then flexes his eye. His right then turns into the second Tomoe Sharingan. Then his left slowly after it. He says, "This is the true power of my quirk. The Sharingan tier 2. And All Might's like, "Hey, Izuku, I see. To prove that it's stronger, how about you throw a punch at me?" Deku's taken aback at this. He's like, "What do you mean, throw a punch?" All Might says, "Throw a punch at me, Midoriya." All Might then buffs up and says, "I can take whatever you throw at me. I promise. And make sure it's your strongest too." Izuku then says, "Are you sure, old man? I don't want to injure you again." All Might laughs it off and says, "I'm not really sure you could even." So, Deku gets a big running start towards All Might, cocks back his fist as far as it would go, and All Might is sort of scared of this. Not only is Deku stronger now, Deku is as athletic as he would be at the end of the year in the original story. At the end of the year during the original story, that's where Deku is at this point, because he did all of that year training in 3 months. So Deku cocks back, and he gets ready to throw the punch at All Might. All Might stands there in his buff form. Deku throws a punch right into All Might's gut, right where the injury was. All Might's stunned by this. And after this, All Might could not stay standing. He falls to his knees and says, "Ugh, nice one, Izuku, but that's only gonna be about maybe 25% of my overall power." All Might then spits out some blood. It's pretty strong though. He wipes his face and powers down. He says to Midoriya that he isn't enough to beat him yet. If he can't even like contend with All Might right now, he will not be enough to contend with All For One. He hasn't told Deku about All For One specifically. He just says to Deku, "Kid, I want you to beat the guy who beat me, but you're not enough yet. Maybe when you get to UA, I don't know." Deku then says, "What do you mean maybe when I get to UA? I want to be strong before I get there. I don't want to get there and have to work my whole life just to be less than you." All Might then says, "There's one more thing we could do. Since you did all this training quicker than I expected you to, I honestly thought it was going to take you a year." He says, "How about I teach you the basics of fighting since you don't really know how to throw a punch?" Izuku says, "Throw a punch? Are you serious? I almost killed you." All Might then laughs and buffs back up. He says, "Come at me with the best you got." Izuku turns his eyes off, then back on. "Second Tomoe!" he screams, and almost like, "I thought you called it second tier." "Yeah, but you see the thing in my eye?" He points to the iris. "This is called a Tomoe. I named it myself. Don't you think it's cool?" He says, "Yeah, it's a pretty cool name." And by the time he says it's a pretty cool name, Deku is right underneath him, right back where the injury was, and he's trying to punch it again. All Might just grins and blocks it with his fist. This sends Deku flying away. All Might says, "Try again, kid." For the next 2.5 months, Deku and All Might have been sparring. All Might's only been using about 10 to 15% of his power, and he's just been teaching Deku the basics about throwing punches. And one day, out of the 2.5 months, Deku says to All Might, "All Might, I never thought of this, but why don't you use kicks?" And All Might's just standing there like, "What do you mean?" Deku says, "Why don't you use kicks? Don't your fists get pretty tired from punching all the time? Why don't you just use your legs?" And All Might's like, he just gulps and he's like, honestly, I never thought of that." This stuns Deku. What kind of idiot is All Might anyway? So Deku then adapts kicking into his own fight style. He's now contending with All Might at 15%. In this what if, as the stronger that Deku gets, the stronger the Sharingan gets. And the stronger the Sharingan gets, the stronger of a boost it gives to Deku. So basically, his abilities bounce back off of each other naturally. If Deku gets more physically strong, his Sharingan gets stronger and boosts him physically as well as agility, as well as mentally, and as well as in perception. So that helps Deku out a lot. So during this 5 months now that we're in, Deku is on a completely different level to even when he was at the beginning of the entrance exam. Deku now versus Deku in the entrance exam would not even stand a chance, because Deku at the entrance exam couldn't really fight. Deku here can fight his ass off. Deku can throw kicks, punches, and he can contend with All Might at 15%. When All Might's throwing those big punches, Deku uses his Sharingan and he can tell exactly where the punches are going, and he just dodges and weaves. It's like he's a leaf in the wind, just dodging All Might's powerful blows. Deku is really developing, and All Might's stunned by this. He's like, this kid is going to be something. This kid is going to be the next big thing. He knows it, but he needs just a little more of a boost to make sure that he becomes the next big thing. So another month goes by, and at this point, Deku is close. He's close to peaking his power that he can get in the 2 Tomoe. He's really on the edge of unlocking the 3 Tomoe Sharingan. As we know, this is the Uchiha's final version of the base Sharingan. After this, they move into like god level territory, to like the Mangekyo, and after the Mangekyo you got the rinnegan. After the rinnegan you got the Rinne Sharingan, you know. And Deku is really just cusping on the 3 Tomoe Sharingan. He just needs a bit more of a boost. He just needs a bit more of getting used to the 2 Tomoe and a bit more struggle in his life. You know, as we know, the Sharingan increases tears into like bears struggle into out of necessity. Like it's like the Avatar state from Avatar: The Last Airbender or from Legend of Korra. The Sharingan responds to necessity and responds to chemicals in the brain. So All Might is now teaching Deku the final move in his arsenal. He says, "This is the United States of Smash. What I do is I put all of my power into one arm." And Deku's like, "Stop right there, All Might. All these smashes, Texas Smash, Detroit Smash, they're all stupid. And All Might's like, what? What did you say? Deku says, the smashes are stupid. Do you understand? They're not that smart. Of course they look cool and they're flashy, but what's the point of having a big flashy move if it's not smart? Every time you try to throw a smash at me, All Might, I can dodge it easily. And All Might's like, what are you trying to say? And Deku says to All Might, honestly, I don't know if you've been trying that hard, because it seems to me like you have, but I've been going easy on you. What? Easy on me? All Might says. Yeah, I really have. Over the last month, it just hasn't been the same, you know? Like, my quirk's gotten to a place where I think I'm ready to contend with you, All Might. All Might just laughs and says, ready to contend with me? He buffs back up and says, come at me. For the next month, Deku is fighting with All Might at 30 to 45%. Sometimes All Might jumps up to 45% when Deku's trying his hardest, and sometimes when Deku's having a bad day, he keeps it down to 30 or 35. That's sort of percentage range. And All Might is seeing Deku increase by leaps and bounds. At this point, Deku still hasn't unlocked the third Tomoe Sharingan, but he's literally, if anything happens to him in his life, the Sharingan's gonna activate like that. All he needs is the chemicals in his brain to activate the next tier of the Sharingan. So, Deku fights All Might at 45%. And at this point, Deku's keeping up with him at 45%. Not in speed wise, but in like, he's slower than All Might. He is slower than All Might and he's way weaker than All Might at this point. But out of his sheer skill in fighting and hand-to-hand combat, he is better than All Might is in hand-to-hand combat. He is essentially, I don't want to bring too much Naruto into this because I want to keep it really My Hero Academia, but he is essentially a taijutsu master. He uses taijutsu on All Might. When All Might's throwing a big smash, he just goes out of the way, sweeps All Might's legs, and goes on top of him, and slams him on the ground and gets back up and runs away from All Might. He's a very smart fighter. He's a very he's not predictable at all. And when All Might tries to go and smash him, he might be above or underneath All Might. He never knows. He's extremely good at fighting. So, after this month, All Might says to Deku, I have nothing more to teach you. All I can do for you is give you strength at this point, because you're surpassed me when it comes to skill in fighting, but you're still nowhere near me when it comes to power. Deku says, I don't need your power, All Might. If I can maneuver over you and slowly take you down one by one, I can easily beat you. I know you can only last an hour, and my stamina is damn near infinite compared to yours. And that's not an excuse to lose to a middle schooler, All Might. All Might starts laughing. This time, he buffs back up, but his grin disappears. He smirks at Deku and says, why are you giving me attitude, Izuku? Deku breathes out. Deku breathes in. Deku breathes out. I might have something to show you, he says. Something to show me. Alright, go ahead. Deku takes a deep breath in and says, I think I unlocked another stage of my quirk. All Might's eyes open widely. Deku says, yeah, I think I have. But I just need a push. All Might just deflates and says, why you gotta scare me like that, kid? He buffs back up and stares right at Deku in his eyes. Show me what you got, kid. Deku then screams in pain and agony, and his second Tomoe Sharingan turns deep red. A bright red, and All Might can see what it looks like to be a silhouette of a Tomoe curving out on the opposite side of Deku's second. He says, oh, I see it, kid, and you're close. You're just not there yet. Deku still pushes and screams, but it's not happening. The eyes are there, but he just can't keep them there. He's just trying to stay and trying to keep him there. Deku remembers something that he did in preschool. He held his breath when he first figured out how to activate his Sharingan. Held his breath while his third Sharingan was still just trying to appear, and All Might could get a good look at it. He says, there are 3 of the swirly things, whatever they call it, Tomoe? There's 3 of them now. I think this is the 3rd stage of your quirk, Deku. Deku says, huh, you think you can beat me like this? And then he just, lets out all the air that he had. He had to breathe. All Might just laughs and says, maybe if you could use it, you'll be able to fight me. Deku bursts off to All Might and says, what did you say to me? He dodges him easily. At this point, All Might went from 50% to using 70 to 80% of his full power. He just wanted to teach Deku a lesson. He felt like he was getting way too cocky, and that he needs to humble himself. It's only been 7 months of training, and I know he made a lot of progress, he thought. But this kid is way too big for his own boots. He's slowly turning from Killua into more of a Sasuke into more of a guy who thinks that he's the greatest. He can beat All Might. He must be great, he thinks. So All Might just uppercuts him straight on his head. Deku literally flies up into the air over the water of the beach. This isn't happening, Deku thinks in his head. How? How am I so weak? As he's flying in the air and coming back down, he slowly starts to black out. On his head, all he can think is, he was holding back this whole time. Why am I so weak? He collapses into the sea. All Might walks over to pick him up. When All Might grabs him and pulls him closer towards his chest so he can carry him, he deflates. He looks into Deku's eyes as he's deflating and struggling to carry him. He saw it then. The 3 Tomoe Sharingan. It was as bright as day. No interruptions. It wasn't a silhouette. It was a 3 Tomoe Sharingan. Deku was still knocked out, but his eyes were wide open. And All Might thought to himself, this is it. He is the one. He is the future. He will lead us to a new era of peace. He will be number 1. When Deku wakes up, he's treated to some food by All Might. All Might went in the corner and got him some street food. I don't know, some burritos or something. I'm making this shit up as I go. Deku bites into the food and says, oh, there's something stringy in there. When he goes into his mouth and pulls something out, he looks at it. Half-eaten piece of golden hair. All Might chuckles and says, you're welcome, Izuku. Izuku's like, what the hell? What the hell are you doing, old man? You sick bastard? All Might just laughs and says, so, did you accept my power? Deku says, what? What do you mean? And All Might just continues laughing. Well, that will be all for this part. If you like this and you want part 2, comment, subscribe, like, you know, part 2 will be coming out soon. I made this part 1.5 and I know it's really long. I made it specifically because part 2 is going to be very long. If I had this with part 2, it would literally be probably about 45 minutes. And I wouldn't want to put anybody through that. I'm sorry about the terrible quality because this is a part 1.5. I rushed this out, so next week I can take my time and focus on editing What If Deku Had the Sharingan part 2. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week. What If Deku Had the Sharingan episode 1? Now, let's get right into the first part of the episode. What If Deku Had the Sharingan part 2? Where we just left off, All Might had tricked Deku into eating his hair, effectively making Deku the next user of One For All. While Deku was screaming and yelling at All Might stopped giggling and just looked at Deku. All Might gave Deku the look a father would give to his son. They've grown even closer over the last few months than they did in the original because of the changes in Deku's personality. He was much more outspoken and not as shy as he was in the original because Deku was way more confident. He had a quirk. He wasn't Bakugo or Sasuke or even Killua like I said before. He was Izuku Midoriya. Deku noticed how All Might was just staring at him and says, All Might? All Might, wake up. That's when All Might snapped out of it and got up. He walked over to Midoriya, buffed up and patted him on his head. This shocked Midoriya, who had already began getting in a fighting stance and already activated his Sharingan. Slowly looked up to All Might. His scowl turned into a smile. He looked All Might in the eyes the same way a son would look up to his father. All Might says, calm down. I just gave you my power. What power? All Might says, the power that I have now is not originally mine. It is a power that was passed down generation to generation. It's called One For All. Deku's face slowly went from the look of pride in his father to confusion. Deku's Sharingan deactivated on its own, and Deku took a step back. Midoriya? Midoriya? Midoriya, are you there? Midoriya, are you alright? All Might says. Deku put his head down. All Might said, let's sit down so I can explain this better. No! I think you explained a lot, All Might. Deku would lift his head up and was staring All Might in his eyes. He said, You think I'm weak? The look of both pride and confusion was gone. The only thing that was left was a look of disgust in Deku's eyes. He continues to yell, "You think I'm weak? For some reason!" This echoes through the breach. I'm gonna try to say something, but Deku cuts him off, saying, "You've had your chance to talk, and now it's mine. You never really believed in my power, did you?" All Might stutters, trying to look for the words to describe himself. "No, you didn't get to talk. You thought I'd lie to me the day you said you think I could become number one of my own power. You think I need a handout?" Tears flow from Deku's eyes. He turns around as to not let All Might see them. All Might deflates. Deku says, "Your power isn't really yours. You're a fraud, and you want me to be one too." "I can't believe you." He turns around to look at All Might. He sees tears coming from All Might's eyes. All Might tries to reach out and grab Midoriya, but that's when he sees the look of pure disgust and anger in Deku's eyes. Deku had finally, unconsciously or not, accessed the 3 Tomoe Sharingan fully. All Might just looked down in shame, moving his hand away from Izuku's wrist. Deku notices this and scoffs. He lets out a whispered and whimpered, "Pathetic." It reminded him so much of something that Bakugo would do. He runs away from the beach, and rain started heavily falling. It was as if something had just died. It was as if the bond that they shared had been severed, never again to be repaired. When Deku was far enough from the beach, his Sharingan deactivated and he walked home. He got in, walked past his mom without saying a thing, and went to his bed. He laid there, wet, thinking, did he do it because I was too weak? Or did he do it because he wanted me to be strong? All Might went home and he did the same thing. Did I do it because he was too weak? Or did I do it because I wanted him to be strong? All Might thinks. Even though neither of them could come with a conclusion on that topic, they came up with a conclusion on something else. Deku was never again going to that beach. And All Might was going to try his best to go to the beach every day for at least an hour. A few months go by and it's now time for the entrance exams. Deku walks past Uraraka without tripping. Uraraka doesn't approach Deku because he's wearing a hoodie with sunglasses on. He doesn't look very approachable, so she does not approach him. He walks past Bakugo, who doesn't say anything to Deku. He's still kinda embarrassed and weirded out by Izuku, and walks into UA. Deku still sits next to Bakugo in the written exam, and he doesn't really say anything to Deku. The practical exam is taking place. Everybody is there in their respective stances. Deku isn't really in a stance. He only starts to move when President Mike begins the countdown. Deku takes off his hoodie. Everyone in the exam now turns their head to look at Deku. Ida just scoffs and turns his head back. Underneath the hoodie was a green tracksuit. Bakugo looks at Midoriya like, he can't be serious right now? Deku takes off his sunglasses and throws them near his hoodie. He takes off his black slacks that he was wearing and revealed the real green tracksuit pants that were underneath. He did all this by the time President Mike's count went down to 3. Deku looks around and says, "Wow, really cool quirks, but you're no match for me." He said it just loud enough for everyone around him to hear him. Bakugo keeps his mouth shut while Ida is angry and fired up. He just looks straight. President Mike says, "Go!" and Ida bursts off. Deku starts doing stretches. Meanwhile, everybody else is already fighting. He says, "Wow, that guy's pretty fast, huh?" Too bad. His Sharingan activates. It was barely even letting him access second Tomoe. Ugh. Damn, I'm really rusty, he says. He hadn't used his quirk or exercised since what happened with All Might. He then got into a sprinting stance and takes off. He zooms past the people in the back struggling. Then he got towards the people in the middle. They didn't even see Deku. He even took out a robot. He then goes and gets close to Ida, who at this point was reveling. He thought he taught that kid a lesson, until he saw Deku run past them. He was in shock. Deku then started taking out bots quickly with minimal effort. He soon realized that he should have just asked All Might for a recommendation so he wouldn't have to do all this. Ah well, he thinks, at least I'll get to warm up a bit. He's taking out robots so fast he's even stealing other people's elimination. Bakugo is trying his best to keep up, but for some reason he just can't. That's when the 0-point robot arrives. Bakugo, who was a little bit in front of Deku fighting a robot, looks back to see Midoriya grinning. He says, "Deku, there's no time for this. Let's just go." Then they hear a girl screaming. It's Yuraraka. Deku noticed her out of the corner of his eyes when he was going up into UA. She was gonna approach him, but for some reason decided not to. Deku looked at Bakugo and said, "Bakugo, we have to save her." Bakugo said, "No, Deku, we're not heroes. Let's go. A pro will save her. Let's go, Deku." Deku turned around and said, "I expected more from you, Kachan." Deku burst off, and Bakugo only felt a gust of wind behind him. He knew Deku was going to save her. He turned around and said, "I'm not gonna let you one-up me, Zuko." He explodes towards Deku. Midoriya slows down in order to speak to Kachan. Kachan, he says, "You get the girl to safety, I'll solve the robot." "Deku, that's not a good idea. Let's just get the girl and go." "No, Kachan. Do as I say." All the people in the back turn around to see Deku and Kachan fist bumping. He just was in shock. No, everyone was in shock. Bakugo explodes to the left, and Deku turns and sprints to the right, making the robot have to choose. Just as Deku thought, the robot chose him because he had the tendency to attack whatever was closest. It swings and Deku prepares himself. When the arm was low enough, Deku jumped on the robot's arm and at full speed ran up its forearm. Each footstep left a small dent in the robot until Deku was on its shoulder. He jumped off and used the gust of wind and the momentum from his jump to get closer to the robot. He was on the right side of the robot and punched it with almost everything he had. It left a big dent in the robot. But the robot was still functional, and Deku was just a sitting duck. The robot used its left hand to smack Deku down to the ground as if it was swatting a fly. Bakugo couldn't even help Deku, because when the robot moved its arm, it created a gust of wind that knocked him, the girl, and the rock holding the girl down away. The girl was safe. However, the rock had smashed into Bakugo's right arm. Yuraraka was knocked out, so she couldn't use her powers to move it. Ida, who saw all of this, burst off and turned to the left. If he went near Deku, he would die, so he decided to go save Bakugo first. The robot's hand was going to go for another strike against Deku, and the pros who were spectating this were already ready to move, but All Might got up, buffed up, and walked over to where all the pros were. He standing in front of the door. He told them, "No, I know who that boy is. That is Izuku Midoriya, and something like that wouldn't take him down." The robot's hand was still in swing, and it crashed down onto the floor, leaving a hole in the ground. All the pros were stunned, and all the students too. Well guys, that's the end of part 2. Before I start part 3, I just want to give a quick shout out to some people first. I want to give a quick shout out to Young Money AMG, who is a great Fortnite player. He plays against PC players basically, and he's on console. He's playing against people who play on like 100 frames, 200 frames on console. The videos that he have up right now aren't even like half the stuff this guy can do. It's not even, he just posts up clips that he has. I once saw this guy playing in a qualifier match in his lobby. I joined his lobby. Guy was playing a qualifier match. I didn't even know this guy played qualifier matches. And the guy was like, the guy's godlike, and he doesn't really post any of his godlike clips. He only posts clips that he has on his Xbox at the time. You really need to go show this guy some love. I'll put his channel up right now. Go show this guy some love. And let's start. We left off. The robot's hand was in swing. It crashed into the floor, leaving a hole in the ground. All the pros were stunned, and the students too. Before they even realized, Deku slipped out of his unconscious state and was safe. All Might was right. Time to give this another try. Deku's eyes went black, and when he opened them, it was like he was in a whole other world. He tries to roll as a robot faster than any of the heroes could even say "Nani?" He tried the same tactic again, though the robot's arm was still in the ground. Deku ran up it and saw all the weakness of the machine. His eyes noticed the legs were the weakest point, but it was too late now. He was already at the top, the machine's shoulder. He went to the exact same strike, exact same place as last time, but this time it was many times stronger than the first. Deku rammed his fist so hard into the bot, his wrist slipped out of place, and the strike made him think of All Might. He was right. I guess there is a point to a big, flashy hit. It made Deku's heart skip a few beats. He didn't even know he was doing it, but he yelled, "Smash!" The air went dead. It was like sound didn't exist for 5 seconds. Everyone was quiet. That's when sound finally returned to the world, and a big gust of wind formed after Deku's swing. The robot was knocked into the building on the left. Ida had already gotten Bakugo and Yura rocket to safety. Both were conscious and witnessed Deku do what he did. Bakugo smiled and whispered to himself, maybe he is UA material after all. Deku used the momentum from the punch to move towards the right side of the building, then skipped down the side of the building and landed on his feet. He walked towards Bakugo, deactivating his 3 Tomoe Sharingan, saying, "Oi! Kachan! Did you see that?" The robot had gotten up and smacked Deku across the side. It wasn't broken. Deku hadn't put enough strength into that swing. Bakugo watched in pain as Deku smashed into building after building, breaking almost every bone in his body. All Might stands up and was shocked, as well as everyone in the exam. The pros rushed to get past All Might, who was still standing there blocking the door, and the medical team was assembled. Deku was down and almost dead. There was no way he was getting up from this, everybody thought. Bakugo stood up, went out of the commission, and screamed, "You bastard!" He charged towards the robot. Then, he used explosions to go to the right where Deku had been rushed through. He exploded through all the rubble, and when finally he was in the 5th building that was already broken down to bits, Izuku wasn't dead, nor knocked out, but a little bit bloodied and beaten. He was getting up with his hands on his knees. Ugh, Kachan. Ugh, give me a hand, Bakugo. Bakugo quickly went over to pick up Midoriya and helped him. Midoriya patted Bakugo on the shoulders and said, "You already know, Kachan. One last time." Bakugo grinned and said, "You really have changed, Deku." They emerged from the rubble. Bakugo was carrying Deku with one arm over his shoulder. All Might, the pros, and everyone else is shocked. In fact, they're all too shocked to move. Not only was this kid alive, he'd probably only suffered minor fractions instead of breaking every bone in his body. All Might smiled and faced the heroes and the medical team, and he said, "Calm down. I told you, didn't I?" Back on the field, Bakugo yells, "Engine guy!" Ida knew this was his cue. The robot was still active and had its sights on Bakugo and Deku. Ida burst off, knowing what to do, grabs Deku and brings him back to Uraraka. He went back and got Bakugo. Deku stands up. He faces Ida and says, "Thanks, what's your name?" Ida says, "It's Tenya Ida." Deku's like, "Oh, Ida, huh?" Deku is still a hero geek and he knows all about Ida's family, and inside of himself he's freaking out and fanboying. He keeps it cool while talking to Ida, however. "Well, I've caught my breath. You, Bakugo?" "Yeah, I'm good, Deku." Which doesn't surprise Ida. He knew by giving it a look in their eyes, they were gonna give it another try. "Well, Ida, my name's Izuku Midoriya, and this is Katsuki Bakugo. I don't know what that girl's name is, but, anyway, bye." Deku turns around, cracks his arm back into the place, and Bakugo suddenly gets behind Deku. He says, "Why can't I be the one and you throw me?" Ida thinks, what? For a quick sec? He did think they were gonna try again, but he didn't think they would do something so blunt and stupid. "Wait!" he screams, but it's too late. Deku was already in the air, and Bakugo's hands were already exploding. Bakugo just turns around and begins to walk away. He says, "Don't worry, he's serious now." And he starts mumbling under his breath, "Cow." I know that look on Deku's face. Deku had a scowl that can burn your soul flying towards the robot. It was personal now. She knew what he had to do. He couldn't access his full power while in 3 Tomoe Sharingan mode yet, so he had to do it. In his mind, the question that he had many months ago, didn't matter. All Might didn't do it because he thought Deku was being weak or strong. He did it because he wanted Deku to be number one. To All Might in the stands, this was obvious. And to Izuku Midoriya, he thought, you know what, I will be number one. Deku turned on his 3 Tomoe to see the machine's weak points. And as he guessed it before he started flying, the head had sustained enough damage that a big punch would be enough to finish it. But as he's flying right into the middle of the face of the beast, he knew he wasn't going to throw a big punch. He thinks back to what had happened to All Might, explaining how he buffs up to activate his quirk. And he said that he flexes his muscles really hard. He thinks on All Might trying to teach him the smashes as well. And Deku flexes his right arm, and nothing is happening. As we know, you have to accept one for all to use one for all. And in Deku's heart, he hadn't accepted one for all yet. All Might knew this. He ran towards a window. He ran towards the window where all the spectators were, and he yelled, "Smash!" as loud as he could. Everyone in the 5-mile radius could hear it, and Deku finally let go of his pride and his selfishness and opened his heart to one for all, accepting it. He deactivated his Sharingan. His arm felt the power surging in it, and All Might's lessons all began playing back to Deku. He started saying it. And All Might started saying it. It all culminated in a deep smash! The robot jerking the pressure. It was just like a new. The robot was completely destroyed. Bakugo was stunned, but not that surprised. He didn't even turn around. He just scowled. Tears slowly dripped from his eyes. He just kept walking away. All Might was smiling. He went back to his booth deflated. Deku's arm was critically injured, and he also had no way of getting down. The buildings to his right and left were completely destroyed by now. When Uraraka flies up, that's when Uraraka flies up and uses a quirk on Deku. Deku gets down. Uraraka explains the quirk to Deku, asks for a name, and everything to this point goes like in canon. But when Deku goes to Recovery Girl, All Might isn't there. Deku knows why. While Recovery Girl is angry at All Might for leaving his student, Deku's healed, worn, and goes home that day. And he goes to bed sad and confused. His heart is still a little bit broken. He's not ready to return yet. A few weeks go by and Deku gets acceptance letter, and he was accepted into UA. And All Might was the one to tell him. Not only did he help save the girl and destroy the 0-point robot, but he had gotten the second most villain points. He was 2 behind Bakugo, whom, while he was on his way out, broke 2 more, and broke the tie they had. All Might then says to Izuku, "I'm so proud of you, son." The tape ends, and Deku was crying his eyes out. He wipes his face, and runs to the door. He doesn't tell his mom anything, not even a goodbye. She's very worried at this and grabs him before he leaves the door, and says, "Stop! Where are you going?" Deku rips his hand away. He just walks out the door. He runs at full speed, and the door slams right in his mother's face. She starts crying, and it starts raining. Deku runs and runs and runs towards the beach. He gets there, and he sees All Might sitting where they would usually sit and eat, with umbrellas up, and All Might is eating ramen. In Deku's chair, there's a burrito. Deku sees this and starts crying and laughing. All Might sees Deku. Their eyes lock, and All Might gets up and walks over to Deku. They both hug each other for about 2 minutes straight. They sit down and talk for about 2 hours straight. Suddenly, the rain stops, and Deku gets a phone call. Well, that was part 2.5. Part 3 will be coming up very shortly. Before that, where we last left off, Deku had gotten a call from the hospital. His mom was rushing to the infirmary an hour and 30 minutes after Deku had left his house. 2 hours had passed with Deku in the hospital. He was talking to a doctor who had said that his mom had a severe heart disease because primarily it was stress. This hits Deku right in the chest. His mom was sent to the hospital because of him. He was the reason. He was the reason, he thought. This burden was heavy on Deku's back. Midoriya? Midoriya? Yes, doctor. I'm sorry. I was thinking. No, it's alright. Like I was saying, we have the option to do an operation, but it's very risky with a 53% success rate. And what if it fails? If it fails, it would end in death or permanent disabilities. If it succeeds, she would return to her old state. Is there anything else I could do? No, I'm afraid. You can have the time if you need to think about this and go ahead. But we will inform your mother when she awakens. Okay, that's all. Bye. Deku walks into the room where his mother is. He walks over to the bed. He's standing right over her. And he gets on his knees, bursting in tears. Mom! I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I promise. Never again. I didn't know. I didn't know. Never. A few weeks go by. It's time for school. Deku rolls up to class. Ida and Bakugo are still arguing, and Deku opens the door. This time, immediately, the attention in class is shifted to him, automatically. It's him, they all thought. Bakugo looked at Deku with a sort of face of empathy as he walks in. The moment with Ida and Uraraka still happens, except Deku is way more cool with his approach to the convo. He doesn't really want to talk to anybody, so he tries to make the combo as brief as possible. Eraserhead is Eraserhead, and he walks in. Except for this timeline, Deku notices him right away. He doesn't point this out, however, he just grunts and smirks. He knows all about Aizawa. He had a quirk in his eyes, just like him. Deku walks over to an empty desk while Aizawa talks. Now, it's time for the physical test. Deku loves the idea of this test. Bakugo is still first up. He throws the ball as far as in the OG. The races go as usual, except for Deku and Kachan's. Now it's Deku and Kachan's turn. Go! Deku bursts off. Bakugo's behind him. Then it's all over. He didn't even have to use his quirk. 2.9 seconds. Aizawa is shocked. Deku just stretches his legs and looks up at Aizawa with a grin. Aizawa had the shocked look on his face. Ida was visibly disappointed. Bakugo was visibly angry. Now it's time for the grip test. Deku gets 350 on that. He does alright on the long jump, and now it's time for the ball throw. Uraraka still gets infinity and everything happens like in canon, except for when Deku gets up to throw the ball. He can hear his classmates whisper that he didn't use his quirk and that it was really strong. Why isn't he using this? Why isn't he using his quirk? What is going on? All this talk kinda infuriates Deku. As he gets ready to swing, mid-swing he starts thinking about, why am I not using this quirk? He wasn't using it because subconsciously he thought that his quirk was the reason for everything happening. For his falling out with All Might, for his mom being in the hospital. He sort of condemned his quirk, and condemned One for All. He started to hate it, and hate himself. His emotions boiling up, Deku's Sharingan activates. One for All starts up. The arm in his power is surging at this point, but it is not from his Sharingan. As I said before, the Sharingan boosts his physical strength in this timeline. I see a lot of comments about this and I'm going to address it right now. I messed up on the Sharingan, but I'm using this as pure headcanon. As we see in the story, every time an Uchiha unlocks the new tier of the Sharingan, they do get astronomically stronger. Like, come on, compare. You have to get astronomically strong to unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan. That is said that you can be. Nobody has ever been, like, extremely weak and unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan. There isn't a direct link between these two, and a direct link is never ever explained. It's just explained that you have to kill your best friend. But I do believe, in my head, as extreme headcanon, you do have to be physically stronger and physically able to wield the Sharingan to get the next tier of it. Pure headcanon, pure just me figuring out a way to make Deku stronger, figuring out a way to make this all work into the story. I admit to that. In my future what ifs, I will be making it more true to the power, but this will just be more, I don't want to say story driven, but this will be more like, don't focus on the Sharingan, focus on how the Sharingan affects Deku. You know what I mean? Yeah, let's go back into this. The physical strength from the Sharingan isn't boosting his arm because he isn't sending the boost to his arm. The physical strength is going all over his body. It isn't really specifically anywhere, but his One for All is in his arm. All of it is. And now Deku is just looking forward. He's getting ready to swing. And All Might is still watching from the corner. Instead of being there because he's afraid Deku might fail, he's there to observe Deku's mental state. He hadn't seen him since the day he had stormed off. For so long, All Might didn't know why, but earlier that morning, he had found out. It was because of Deku's mom being in the hospital. Deku was at the apex of his swing, and winds started forming around his arm when Aizawa goes into action. deactivating Deku's quirk. He says, "Your quirk is dangerous." That's when Deku says, "Huh? You think I don't know that? Huh?" Isaiah was stunned. He didn't think that this kid was the type of guy. Izuku was now visibly crying. Bakugo was staring at this point. He knew everything that everybody else didn't know. "Just give me the ball," Deku says. Aizawa hands him the ball, and Deku throws it with no effort, extending his hand, letting it fall, basically 0.3 meters. "You happy?" He looks up at Isaiah. Tears. "Young man, life isn't fair. Like I said, you don't get to say that." "Oh yeah?" Deku balls up his fist and looks up at Aizawa with a death glare. "We've all been through it, you know." Deku's fist went from clenched to flat within a matter of one word. Deku's still glaring, however. The feeling of not knowing if someone you care about will live or die is an extremely tough one. I know. But when you're a hero out there trying to save lives, you can't just let your emotions get the best of you. You have to fight through the pain, Izuku. Deku just grunts and walks away. All Might's in the corner thinking. He had to tell Deku. He had to encourage him somehow. He had to say something. No one is expelled. I don't think anyone would get expelled in the original anyway. I think that Aizawa would see the potential in Mineta. He did get the best side-to-side score, and I think he would see the potential in him. After that, All Might calls Midoriya up to his office. "Have a seat, young Midoriya." "All Might, why am I here?" "You don't have to call me that, you know. When it's just you and me, you can call me Toshinori-sensei or Toshinori, if you want." "Nah, All Might's cool. Just have a seat." Deku has a seat, and All Might looks at Deku, remembering his outburst. He says, "I know about your mother." Deku looks up. "I know what it feels like." Deku gets visibly frustrated. "But you're a student hero now. You have to focus on that." Deku was fuming now. "Listen, Midoriya. You're like a son to me. You know that." Deku starts to calm down. "After all, you do have my DNA. I didn't finish explaining how my quirk works." Deku in his mind remembers the day. "Listen, my quirk was started from a feud of two brothers, good and evil. One for all, and all for one." He explains to Deku what one for all is, then what all for one is. He tells him how all for one gets the user the ability to steal other people's quirks. And this really intrigues Deku a lot. He starts thinking about this a lot, and even when he's leaving the office and walking home, Deku keeps on thinking, the quirk to steal quirks, that's almost infinite power. That's when he has an idea. This idea keeps on creeping up in his head every time he thinks about it, and every time he thinks about it is basically all the time. That's when he had another idea. He was putting in the keys to open the door to his house. He walks into the empty house. It was pitch black. He turns on the light and looks around depressed. The kitchen's dirty. There are clothes everywhere. Then he just looks at the kitchen again. He walks to his room, goes straight into bed. And around 4 a.m., Deku awakens. He thought about something. The quirk to steal quirks. What if there was a healing quirk, like recovery girls? What if All for One had a quirk like that? Deku gets up and runs to his notebook. He starts to work, thinking of different things and ways something like this could work. And that day, before class, Deku goes to recovery girl. He asks her about her quirk. She explains to him she heals injuries, not diseases or cancers. This devastates Deku, but he hadn't lost hope. He was still developing something in a way. He was trying to find a way to save the one thing that he cared about more than All Might or being a number one hero. He was trying to think about a way to save his mom.
What if Deku had the Sharingan episode? Part 4. When we last left off, Deku had been trying to find a way to cure his mom. In his room, he had put up a massive whiteboard, and he was connecting dots, thinking of ways to find a possible cure for his mom. And it was around 8. Deku got a call on his phone from All Might. He was calling Deku to make sure that he had his costume ready for the next lesson. It was a hero-oriented lesson, he told Deku, and he made sure not to spoil any major factors for Deku. Deku then ran to his mom's room, remembering something. That's when he saw it in his sewing machine. Deku's suit was there, exactly like in the original. Deku stared at it a while, and while still on the phone, he started to tear up. It was exactly the way he described it to his mother. "Midoriya," All Might called on the phone. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, All Might, I'm alright. About my suit." The next day, Deku rolls up to class. He walks by Uraraka and Idas, and he smiles. He smiles in the Yaku kind of smile that you give somebody that's just an acquaintance to you, you know? And he sits down, and everything is explained to him. He goes, and he suits up. Deku runs out of the changing room in the exact same way like in the original, except his mask isn't blown back, and there is a glare on his suit. It is different. Deku had told All Might that night that he had his suit, but it was unfinished. He'd asked All Might if he could get somebody at the school to make some upgrades on it. It was his mom's base suit, but the ears were gone, and it was more of a motorcycle helmet look that was completely stuck on the suit. The helmet was red, and the suit had little drops of red where the originally green unfinished pieces of the suit were. Deku told the people who worked on the suit to make the red look like little drops of blood on the suit. And on the back of the suit there was a sign, a sigil or a logo. It was the Uchiha clan symbol. How Deku thought of this and why and when, I seriously don't know, but it was there. He looked up and saw Uraraka's suit. He just grinned at her. She didn't say anything back, she just stared at the suit intrigued and amazed. The pole draw still happens like in canon, and All Might explains everything like in canon. Deku and Uraraka are still chosen. Deku is kind of freaked out in the inside, but he doesn't show it though. He just smiles awkwardly, and they don't really talk like in the original. It's more of a kind of awkward interaction. The relationship seriously is set back and will not develop as it did in the original. Bakugo doesn't explode when he's going to be up against Midoriya. His face just lights up like a baby getting candy. He could finally do something about how he was feeling. Bakugo was feeling as though he wasn't good enough. Deku had similarly surpassed him in every way. In his mind, Deku was the best student in UA as far as Bakugo was concerned. He smashed it in the entrance exam, and All Might seemed to really like him, and they were both eerily close, both in how their quirks work and both in their oddly similar fighting styles. Deku, of course, was faster, and he was more of a martial artist, but the smashes were still oriented in both of their fighting styles. Bakugo kinda just chalked this down to Deku looking up to All Might, though the thought that All Might and Deku were closer than they originally seemed was in Bakugo's mind. Deku, on the other hand, was busy thinking of ways to get Uraraka out of the way so he could do what he thinks he should do. He looks over at Uraraka and he walks into the building. He walks over to her and he says, "Trust me, stay back." Well guys, that was part 4. Part 5 will begin just in a minute. Before I do, we have to give a quick shout out to myself. Basically, I made a gaming channel and I'm going to be streaming there any games you want me to play. So, you know, go there, show me, support me, show some love. Yeah, come on, please go bomb that channel with subs so I can actually get it started and start streaming anything you guys want me to stream over there. Part 5, where we last left off, Deku was preparing to fight Bakugo. Deku! Bakugo explodes towards Deku. Deku doesn't have enough time to turn on his Sharingan, and Bakugo uses this opportunity to punch Deku in the gut. Then he lands on his 2 feet. He doesn't have a quick enough reaction time, so Deku gets a chance, and he kicks Bakugo away. It sends him stumbling back, giving Deku enough time to activate his Sharingan. He activates the 3 Tomori Sharingan and smiles at Bakugo. "You're done for now, Kacha." Bakugo blasts towards Deku. Deku sees everything that Bakugo is going to do minutes before it happens. Bakugo swings right, then he explodes to the left. Deku preemptively grabs Deku's right hand, then with his other free hand points Bakugo's left elbow towards his own stomach, causing Bakugo to go flying back from the force of his own explosion hitting him. Deku then gets his footing and blasts towards Bakugo, leaving a dent in the floor where he had blasted off from. Then he punches Bakugo in the stomach, then bounces off the wall doing a backflip. Kacchan hits the wall hard, and before he even could think, Deku was wailing on him. Hit after hit, Kacchan couldn't even tell what was going on. A barrage of punches and kicks were just hitting his face, stomach, legs, causing him to basically go unconscious. All Might was just about to call for a ceasefire when Ida came in, blazing out of nowhere. He tries to grab Deku. Deku then does a backflip away from Kacchan. Ida luckily grabs Deku's legs, but getting a chance to swing him to the ground. Deku uses his hand. Once he hits the ground, he puts his hand down and spins around like a breakdancer onto his feet. He then turns off his Sharingan and yells, "Smash!" He had powered up a right hand. It was full with one for all power. All Might then yells, "Stop!" However, Deku had thrown his fist. Not at Ida, however. He threw his fist downwards, completely shattering the entire building. Meanwhile, Uraraka had just reached the place where the bomb was. She hops on the bomb and uses her powers to float the bomb out of the rubble, just like how she did in the original. Deku was not expecting this. He was expecting to smash the rubble, then go down there and throw the bomb up himself, but he wasn't really expecting Uraraka to be so initiative in her thinking. He just smiles at her and really thinks about what he said earlier. He then looks over at All Might. All Might is really just stunned. Ida is stunned. Todoroki is amazed. Everybody is amazed at what Deku had just done. He had basically just smashed everything in like less than 3 minutes. Todoroki at this point, it's his first time seeing Deku fight. He can't even say words. All Might just starts heroically laughing, and Deku is panting. He looks over to see the look on Bakugo's face, but there's no look on Bakugo's face at the moment. He's knocked out. His face is bloodied and beaten. Deku may have gone a little bit too hard on him, he thought. He was pulling his punches, but that's when Bakugo opens his eyes to see the medical team rushing towards him, and to see Deku looking at him with victory written all over his face. He looks around and sees it. He says, "Izuku?" "No, Bakugo. It's Deku." Well, that was part 5. We will get on to the next part after a short message. Go sub to my gaming channel right freaking now if you want to live. If you want to die, okay buddy, you can do what you want. Of course, it's your body, your choices. I would never tell anybody what to do with their body. You know, you can do what you want. But you know, why wouldn't you want to see more content, like more good content on your feed? I don't know, it's just me. If I had the chance to, you know, go sub to Big Uchiha's gaming channel, you know, get more Big Uchiha, you know, get to see what more of his personalities like. I would do it all the time, but it's up to you at the end of the day. What if Deku with the Sharingan part 5.5? Deku is in Recovery Girl's room. He's warned that if he doesn't get his quirk in check, his entire arm will be ruined. So, is there any way that will help me with this? No, I'm afraid. You'll just have to learn to control your power. Deku thinks in his head. There's has to be a way. He has to find a temporary solution to the problem. He asks her, don't heroes have tools? Like, All Might's suit isn't destroyed every time he uses power, right? Yes, that is true. I recommend you would go ask some of the heroes for a solution. Maybe All Might could have a... Maybe All Might can tell me a little bit more about this. So, he decides to go to All Might's office. All Might, he asked, is there a way for me to get my suit like yours? Also, is there a way for me to protect my arms maybe? But take this up with the support unit. Deku. I like that name. But I recommend you train your quirk first. Don't always choose the easy way out. I know, All Might. All Might just looks up for Deku, smiling. Then he looks down. What's wrong, All Might? Nothing, it's just, you're nothing like me, You really are nothing like me. What? You're nothing like me, and yet I feel like we have so much in common, like we were destined to happen, like I was destined to meet you. All Might, is this about me calling you? No, it's alright. Just go home, get some rest, and tomorrow we'll go down and talk to the support unit, alright? Before I go, All Might, about this All For One, what about him? He would have all types of powers, right? Yes, Izuku. Like he would have like a wide range of abilities. Yes. And he could give any power to like anybody he wanted. Yes, Midoriya. I have a lot of work to do, I'm sorry. Maybe you should go and get, some rest. I understand that you're under a lot of stress, with your mom. Don't do that. I'm sorry, Midoriya. Don't you dare do that. All Might, you know what you're doing, and I don't want you to do that, okay? I'm sorry. No, you're not sorry. God damn it. Izuku walks around, and he just turns around and looks at All Might. No, you're not sorry. Okay, All Might, why would you do that? Why would you do that? You know more than anybody. I'm sorry, Midoriya. I didn't mean to patronize you. I'm sorry for blowing up, All Might. It's just anytime somebody, tries to make me feel better when they're not really genuine, it just makes everything feel worse. Oh, Izuku starts walking towards the door. He'd made up his mind. He turned around and he looked All Might in the eyes. He says to All Might, I really am sorry. Oh, it's not a big deal. I understand that you're frustrated. No, All Might. I really am sorry. Izuku walks out of the door, slamming the door behind him. He begins to run, and he starts sprinting until he gets home. He gets in, walks into his room, and stares at his board. It was littered with questions and answers. It was littered with reasons. It was blacked in ink. Deku grabs the board eraser and rubs everything out on the board. He grabs the board pen and writes in the biggest, boldest writing he could, Find All For One. This is part 6 of What If Deku Had the Sharingan. Deku had been on a mission to find All For One. It had been a few days, and it was now around the time of the USJ attack. Deku had been going out every single night before the USJ attack, looking for villains. He had just been wandering the streets, creeping into dark alleys, and trying to find somebody doing something criminal. He'd been trying to sneak his way in what he thought was a villainous community center. Deku had put out multiple ways in his board that he could find All For One. He thought to himself there had to be an association that All For One was a part of. If a guy had the power to give powers and people know he has the powers to give powers, wouldn't he have henchmen that he would give his powers to? So Deku's new mission was searching for one of those henchmen and trying his best to get invited into what he thought was a community center of villains. Deku was unfortunately out of touch. He was literally just walking into dark alleys, like going behind trash bins and just looking any place that he thought there would be crime. All he saw was petty criminals doing petty criminal stuff. He just beat him up and sent him on their way. He was turning into kind of a nighttime vigilante. One night, Deku creeps into a really dark alley in between some of the 2 tallest buildings that he's seen. And on top of one of the buildings, he sees somebody in a red and black suit with sort of a bandana tied, no, a cloth? I don't know what it was, but it was a white, tattered cloth tied around his eyes. Deku had just saw Stain. He saw him months in advance. Deku does not know who Stain is, and nobody knows who Stain is at this point. He just has this eerie vibe from the guy that he's staring at. Stain catches Deku's gaze, and he looks down. As soon as he looks down, there is nobody there. Deku had sprinted home. He was running, panting, trying to get back to his room. Deku gets back in his room, closes the door behind him, and was breathing like he had just saw the devil himself. That next day, Deku had thought that guy had to have something suspicious going on. He had to be in the community center of evildoers. Deku went to the exact same building that night, looking for Stain, but he was nowhere to be found. Stain was now on the move. That was the night before he had gone on his evil mission. Before everything started, Deku just walked back home that night and went to sleep. The next day was the day of the USJ. Deku gets in and everything goes according to canon. Well guys, that'll be all for part 6. If you want the rest of part 6 to come out quickly, you already know. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun jazz. And go sub to my gaming channel if you want more what ifs to come out frequently. What if Deku had the Sharingan? Where we last left off, Deku had woken up on the day of the USJ attack. Deku was drained and tired from all the late nights out. They were starting to take a toll on him. He was slower and less reactive. He left his house and started towards UA. Today was gonna be either Deku's worst day ever or his greatest. The day goes like usual, up to the class rep elections, where usually Midoriya would get elected as class rep. Instead, Ida becomes class rep, taking Midoriya's place. Izuku is so tired that he didn't even hear anything about the election and was just sleeping through the whole thing. We then get to the USJ. 13 explains everything like in canon except Midoriya is half asleep throughout this explanation. When 13's done, the villains appear like in canon. Midoriya's eyes open in a blur as he hears members of his class mumble in questioning, and then he sees Aizawa telling the class to stay back and putting on his hero gear. Deku then woke up when he heard Aizawa say that they're villains. Then Deku says, "Eraserhead, your quirk, it's not." Aizawa says exactly like what he said in canon. You can't be a hero with just one trick. The battle then begins. Aizawa jumps down towards the army of villains like in canon, and the battle ensues. Deku was frozen, he can't move, he's conflicting. Emotions are just eating him up inside. He's watching the battle unfold and he's thinking about what he'll do. Ida then says, "Come on, Midoriya, now's not the time for this." Just like in the original, Kodagiri appears in front of the group of students as well as 13, and he says that we are the League of Villains. Deku gets a confused smirk on his face, unintentionally. The people he'd been looking for, he'd now found them. That's when he heard him say that they were there to kill the symbol of peace. Deku was now confused and conflicted, visibly afraid and frustrated. Kurashima and Bakugo do the same as they did in canon, leading them to getting teleported along with everyone else. Deku was out of it when he's in the water. He scrambles to breathe out of shock, causing him to inhale a big gulp of water. This made him panic and begin to drown. "I want to kill All Might. What do I do?" That's when a shark villain approaches Midoriya, about to bite his head off until Suyu kicks him out the way and throwing him on the ship like in canon. Deku then bottoms up the water, struggling to think. He remembers the press and thinks that they scheduled this attack. Deku is now having a panic attack. This puts Suyu and Mineta on edge. Mineta just doesn't have Deku to strive to be like in this scenario as much as in canon, causing him to spiral even more out of control. This just leads them both to just panicking. "Kill All Might? How?" Midoriya says. "Yeah, how?" Mineta says. "All Might is the strongest, there's no way." This kinda calms Deku down until Suyu says there's now a way. They wouldn't plan this if they didn't have a way to kill All Might. Deku then falls to the ground on his hands and knees. "Those guys have a way to kill All Might," he yells. "You are a student of UA. All Might would never, ever." "No! You don't understand," Midoriya says. "No! Suyu, no! You don't get what I'm going through. What I am, you don't know. I am a UA student too, Midoriya. I want to be a hero just like you." That's when the ship gets split in half like in canon. The villains are talking and they're saying that they really are just kids after all. Even in UA, huh? It doesn't even matter what their quirks are. Deku catches this and thinks for a second. He says to Sue, "They don't know what our quirks are." Deku then begins to regain consciousness and begins to become more of himself again. Deku looks at Mineta and looks at Suya, and he just begins to run off the ship. He jumps and powers up his finger with One for All. Deku at this point doesn't know how to control One for All, so he activates it like he activates his Sharingan. Deku struggled to activate one quirk without activating another. In a lot of what ifs, they don't take this into account when giving Deku an ability on top of One for All. So I don't know how people would be so sure that Deku wouldn't struggle with being able to control both of these powers like he does in the manga when he's controlling one of the One for All abilities. He's not gonna automatically get them both. So Deku has One for All, so Deku now has One for All in his finger, but also has the Sharingan activated by accident. The Sharingan automatically increases the power of One for All with its strength multiplier, causing a bigger impact than in the original. Deku then powers down One for All and dives into the water. He's beginning to fight a lot of the underwater fighters by using his Sharingan to predict where they are and just beating them up that way. Mineta, who sees Midoriya doing all this even though he was just having a mental breakdown, is inspired. He's inspired even more than in the original. Deku is fighting villains underwater using his Sharingan, and that's when Mineta begins to throw balls in there quickly. He throws even more balls than the original. The balls don't stop Deku, however. He can just dodge these with ease. Sue is also seeing that the water is about to converge at the center of Deku's original attack. She grabs Deku without him even knowing with her tongue and pulls him out of the whirlwind right when it was about to implode. Everything goes like in canon. The rest of the UA students are doing what they did in canon. Deku is walking to safety of Suya, and he looks down, ashamed and embarrassed. And he says, "Look, guys, I shouldn't have back there. I shouldn't have said those things. I should have thought more." Suya just says what she says in canon, that Deku shouldn't reflect on the past and should figure out what to do next. Deku just smiles at her. She doesn't know what Deku knows. Deku has to reflect on whether he would join and align himself with the League of Villains and have the possibility of healing his mother by hopefully getting in contact with All for One, or to stop the League. He would lose a lot of hope of saving his mother, but they might kill All Might. So he has to come up with a way to save both of them, and he has to come up with a way to do that fast. That's when they see Aizawa fighting a group of villains. Deku is strategizing, and he sees Aizawa slowly being worn down. He has to make his mind up fast until Nomu. Damn it, what do I do? Then it all clicked to Midoriya. He burst off. You! Tell me where he is. Well guys, that'll be all for part 6 of What If Deku Had This Sharingan. In the comments, tell me if you would like to know that. In the comments, tell me if you liked how Deku handled everything in this part, and discuss what you think is going to happen next time. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz, and I will see you in the next What If. And I was Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Big Uchiha. I'm back with What If Deku Had the Sharingan. Let's get into it. Where we last left off, Midoriya was about to attack Shigaraki. You! Ah! Deku's punch smashed into the Nomu? Deku then immediately backflipped and backed away from Shigaraki. Shigaraki looks over at where Midoriya was, and he says, "I like you. You remind me a lot of." Shigaraki then raises his hand, and he points it at Midoriya. Nomu immediately burst off towards Deku, who then realizes he was up against someone who was a real threat. The attack was the same one that made All Might at 35% stagger. He immediately gets on the defensive. The Nomu was strong, but his attacks were really simplistic, enough for Midoriya to just dodge him. He bobbed and weaved, left, right, and left, right. Deku was predicting and dodging all of Nomu's attacks. Deku now had a sense of Nomu's weak points and his strengths. He began his retaliation. Deku used his left arm to grab Nomu's right arm. While dodging Nomu's left-handed punch, Deku uses Nomu's hand to climb on the beast's back, where he noticed Nomu's weak point, his head. Deku prepares for a swing on Nomu's weak point, but then Nomu smacks Deku off and onto the floor, where Midoriya coughs up blood and gets back quickly. When Nomu grabs his head and smashes it against the ground, Deku fights for air under Nomu's hand. He then realizes something. When Deku awakens, he's in a place he's never seen before. Meanwhile, while Deku's unconscious, All Might fights Nomu like in canon, and he defeats him. He lost something. So, when Deku awakens, like I said, he's in a place where he's never seen it before. He looks around for a minute and wonders. That's when Shigaraki says, "Hey, kid, tell me something. How do you know about him?" All Might, in the meanwhile, is struggling. He's struggling to understand why, how, and when they captured Deku. The entirety of UA is under intense scrutiny by the media, but not as intense scrutiny as when Bakugo was captured, because this is the first time this ever happened, unlike when Bakugo was captured and this happened previous times when it comes to the UA's high school being attacked. Midoriya's mother hears about this and she's put under a lot more stress, and her condition is progressing a lot more quickly. Deku knows how his mother must feel about this when Shigaraki is talking to him. He thinks, I need to get out of this situation quickly, and I need to get that cure quickly. Deku then says, I think your boss would like to see me. Shigaraki retaliates with, huh? Really? So just tell me what you know about my boss. Deku then says, I know his alias. Shigaraki says, huh? What's that? Deku then retaliates with, the man who injured All Might. Haha, Shigaraki says. What's his name then? Deku says, his name is All-for-One. We then cut back to All Might. He's leading a search party for Midoriya. This includes a lot of the top heroes, including Best Jeanist, of course, the best hero of all time. All Might is looking and looking. The search party goes on for a few days by now, and he knows that if he doesn't find Deku quickly, something terrible could happen. What if All-for-One was there? What if All-for-One could take One for All away from Deku, reharnessing the power? What if he was too late? All Might's spiraling thought leads All Might to go into a deep depression, unlike the one he was in when Bakugo was captured, because not only will he be losing a student, but he will be losing his mentee, his pupil. He'll be losing the person that he spent probably the last year and a half training with, and he'll be losing the power he was entrusted to carry on to the next generation. How could he even call himself the #1 hero if he couldn't save the #1 future hero? Anyway, Midoriya is going to have to find a way to wiggle himself out of the situation. He's thinking and Deku! 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 Wake up! Wake up! Bakugo says, Deku, come on! All Might's dead! All Might's dead! Deku wakes up and looks around. He's surrounded by rubble. Buildings toppled on top of each other. Deku looks up and he sees a man. He sees a monster holding All Might's dead body. He sees All for One. Deku reaches down. He unsheathes his sword. He stands up tall. Tears come out of his eyes. Deku then activates his Sharingan. He then activates One for All. And the unison clashes. He has One for All, the Sharingan, and the blade all on his hand. Deku bursts off and he says, Bakugo, flank left. Bakugo runs towards the left while Deku's bursting off towards All for One. Deku's sword moves freely in his hand as if he's a master in this technique. He slices All for One's finger off, but All for One just grows it right back. He says, now that I've gotten rid of the first flame, it's time for me to stomp you and One for All out forever. He grabs Deku by the shirt in mid-air while Deku's about to slice him, but Bakugo is flanking left. Bakugo lets go of a huge explosion, which stuns All for One, making All for One let go of Deku. Deku lands back on his 2 feet, and he jumps up again. He then sees All for One prepping an attack, and he can read what this attack will be based on the flow of energy in All for One's body. He knows it's going to be a gust of wind coming out of All for One's hand, and he says, I don't mind if I do. All for One lets go of this gust of wind. Deku dodges this easily using his Sharingan. Deku's hands then go back up, and he says, All for One, there's something you should know about me. Deku then let go of the exact same attack that All for One had just hit him with the exact same force that All for One had just hit him with. Deku smiles. He says, you should know that the flame burns in me hotter than it had ever burned in anyone ever before. The flame burns in me hotter than even All Might. Even if you kill me, he will never die, Deku says. Even if you kill him, I will never die, he says. Deku's eyes then begin to bleed. Deku had just got the news that his mother had died before he fell unconscious. Deku was now holding the Mangekyo Sharingan. Deku had his hands over his face, and when he removed them, he had reached an entirely new level. With All Might gone, his mother gone, the grief had built up in his system so much, and he thought that it was either now or never. I came for it, All for One, he says. I'm gonna have it. Give me the ability to heal others. All for One says back to Deku, why should I do that? You haven't even given me your eyes yet. Deku remarks back, you'll never get my eyes. You'll never get my One for All. You'll never get All Might's One for All. You'll never get anything you want. You know why, All for One? Do you? Guys, that'll be all for this part. If you want to figure out what happens in the next part, make sure to comment. And if you guys have a theory why Deku is in the future, what's going on, comment it down in the comments below. All your likes, comments, and subscribes really help this video to get out there. If you want more people to see the content and want more people to see my dream and idea of what if Deku had the Sharingan, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and maybe even share the video with some friends. Well, guys, keep theorizing down there in the comments. Keep liking. By the way, there's going to be a new video on Wednesday. It's going to be an entirely new what if, something that I hadn't brought to my channel in months, and it's going to be what if Deku had the Gura Gura no Mi. This is Whitebeard's power from One Piece. If you guys are looking forward to that, you know, like this video as well. I have a consistent upload schedule now, so I'm going to be hitting you guys with some fresh content every single week. There's going to be at least 3 videos a week. So, you know, if you want this to keep coming, you know what you should do. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun jazz. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Yo, what's good everybody? It's me, Big Uchiha, back for another video. Today, in celebration of the What If Asta had the Sharingan 45-minute special dropping, I'm going to be compiling the last few parts that I had left over from the other movie that we did, you know, the one where we just compiled all the parts and just dropped them from part 1 to 8 of What If Deku had the Sharingan. It's going to be from part 8 to part 16, aka the finale. You know, we're going to go past part 20 and all that stuff. It's just going to be, you know, every single part of What If Deku had the Sharingan that was left remaining, plus the finale. And I've actually went back and I've edited the finale, got rid of a lot of the editing issues. It was, you know, it was pretty hard to do, but I got the video I had to go back in time, basically. I had to travel back in time, go back to when I made the video and just re-edit a lot of this stuff. But I did that just because, you know, I'm really happy for what if Asta had this Sharingan special coming out. At a certain point in time, I really thought I was never going to finish it, but I did, and I'm really proud of myself for that work. And with what if Deku had the Sharingan returning soon, if you guys didn't see that announcement on the community page, what if Deku had the Sharingan is going to be returning, and it's going to be returning in a very special way. It's going to be an anthology series, and I'm going to be doing a time skip. We're just going to be skipping right from the part where we left off in the finale, and we're going to go straight past the overhaul arc, and we're going straight into the My Villain Academia arc, which, you know, there's going to be a time skip. So I'm really, you know, excited to get to working on that. I just started scripting, and you know, what if Deku with the Sharingan is really important to me, and I really love the series, and I hope that you guys do. So, without further ado, this is the second part of the movie What If Deku with the Sharingan movie 2, including the finale. I hope you enjoy. Peace.
Midoriya? Yes, Doctor. I'm sorry. I was thinking. No, it's alright. Like I was saying, we have the option to do an operation, but it's very risky with a 53% success rate.
In his room, he had put up a massive whiteboard, and he was connecting dots, thinking of ways to find a possible cure for his mom. Deku had been on a mission to find All for One. He burst off. You! Tell me where he is. When Deku awakens, he's in a place he's never seen before. Meanwhile, he says, "Hey, kid, tell me something. How do you know about him?" Deku! 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 Wake up! Wake up! Bakugo says, "Deku, come on! All Might's dead! All Might's dead!" Deku wakes up and looks around. Deku looks up, and that's when he sees Stain looking down at him with curiosity, almost like the kid wasn't supposed to be there. Stain then simply walks away. He doesn't join the league, just like in Ganon, but Shigaraki obviously wouldn't let Deku know that. What the hell happened back there anyway, kid? 1 minute you're gone on, and then the next minute you are on the ground screaming. You were saying some pretty weird stuff back there in your sleep. You know, they say that when a person sleep talks, their true intentions are always shown. Enough! Deku retaliates with, "I need some rest." Shigaraki gets up and heads towards the exit of the room, but before he goes, he looks back at Midoriya and gives him a glare, a stare, a look that could kill on impact. His eyes screamed, "I am going to kill you." He then took the hand off that was covering his face. He smiled at Deku, nihilistically, sadistically, in hopes of scaring him. Deku looked back at Shigaraki at first with a face of fright. He then remembered his goal. He remembered that this was a mere stepping stone. He had to save his mom at all costs. Midoriya's face changed from one of fright to one of solitude, one of determination. Shigaraki's face slightly changed as well. His smile went from a sarcastic, nihilistic smile to a sincere one, the one that said, "I like you." He then left the room. As soon as the door closed, Deku let off a sigh of relief and then drifted back to sleep. Deku burst awake, sweating. He turned his head to the side, and there was Shigaraki, looming over him. He said, "You were doing it again." Midoriya responded with, "What?" He replied, "Speaking in your sleep, screaming." "You know, I for one would like some sleep before we went and met the boss." "What?" Deku said in response to this bold statement. Shigaraki then tilted his head slightly to the left. This gave Deku all the confirmation that he needed, that Shigaraki was being serious. Shigaraki then itched his neck nervously. He said, "Get ready. we're gonna leave soon. He then exits the room. Is this real? Is this actually happening? Deku is finally going to meet him. They arrived at All For One's hideout. Midoriya tried his best not to look around in fear of coming off as suspicious. He and Shigaraki were led to a room where they were treated with All For One. He was sitting down on a huge, throne-like chair in his lair. Shigaraki immediately bowed in respect for All For One. Deku, on the other hand, was mesmerized by the sight of All For One. He was hooked up to life support machines and was seemingly being fed through a tube. And even with all that taken into account, he was still one of the strongest people to ever exist. Midoriya was sure of that. Deku was now staring in amazement. Shigaraki simply gazes at Izuku, and Midoriya immediately fell into a respect-embedded bow.
This is the boy you were telling me about, Tomura.
Yes, Master, Shigaraki replied with.
He doesn't look all that special. Tomura.
Master, I believe he could be an asset to you. The boy has an astounding looking ability.
Hopefully. You know, this could spell trouble for us, right? You bring that boy here.
Deku was so frightened, overwhelmed. He couldn't say anything at all. The air was so thick. He was choking on his words before he even thought of saying them.
Shigaraki, you're doing fine. Don't worry.
Of course, Master. When Deku looked over, Shigaraki had his hand off his face. He was close to All For One. He looked at him like a son would look up to a father, like he looked up to All Might. Before he knew it, they were on their way back to the lair. Deku got back in his room and began to crawl in bed. That's when Shigaraki came in to have a few words with him.
Hey kid, listen, it's okay. I know you wanted to say something, right? Look, don't worry about it, huh? There's always tomorrow.
Wait, we're going back tomorrow?
Yeah. Get whatever you want off your chest then.
Shigaraki then leaves immediately, closing the room door tightly behind him. Deku had a second shot, and this time he was determined not to mess it up. Right on the other side of the door was Shigaraki. In time. Deku awakens. He immediately looks over to his left-hand side in hopes of seeing Shigaraki.
I'm here.
Deku turned over to the right, seeing Shigaraki itching. I did it again?
Yeah.
There's no problem though, Shigaraki says. I don't really expect to get much sleep these days anyway.
Get ready.
Midoriya just shook his head. Shigaraki left the room. Beneath the mask, he was smiling. A smile of absolute happiness. They get back to the lair, and this time Midoriya knows how to show respect to All For One. He bows, then arises once again. Shigaraki and All For One start to have a conversation. Deku is now preparing himself for what he's about to do. Excuse me, he says. All For One, I know about your ability to give powers. Shigaraki gets angry at Midoriya. He growls in rage. He growls in rage at this rude interruption.
No. It's okay, Tomura.
All For One says.
Go on.
I understand you can give people powers.
Yes, this is true.
I need the power to heal sickness.
Aww.
Shigaraki is itching with rage. Is that possible?
Look at the world we live in. Anything's possible. You're a living example of that.
The ability, it has to be able to heal heart illnesses.
So you want me to give you this ability?
Deku replies with, yes, sir. I do, sir.
What would you do for me in return?
There was silence in the room for a little over 5 seconds, but but in that span of 5 seconds, it felt like years. Midoriya then activates his quirk. My eyes. Look, listen, look. You can have one. Well guys, that will be all for What If Deku Had the Sharingan Part 7.5. Listen, I know, I am sorry I didn't get into more of the plot, but this needed its own part. I'm telling you, this needed its own part. I'm putting so much foreshadowing into this, it needs its own part. Next part, there's gonna be, more plot, I promise you. And I'm sorry for ending on a cliffhanger, but hey, I need you guys to click on the next video, don't I? Come on, don't be like that. Well guys, you already know, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz. Check out the Discord, check out the Patreon. Boom. Peace.
Holy shit, I am actually recording What If Deku Had the Sharingan. Holy shit, this is not happening. Wait, let me take a sip of my G Fuel first. Let me get started. Sip. What If Deku Had the Sharingan, Episode 3. This episode will cover parts 8, 9, 9.5, and a little bit, potentially, of 10. Guys, before we start, I just want to say that I'm sorry for the wait. I had a lot of issues on my back with exams, getting work done, my last year of school. I was piled up in maths. But due to recent events surrounding, the virus and things like that, school has been cancelled. And I finally have a lot of free time on my hands, and I'm going to be dedicating a large amount of that time to this channel. So if you guys can help me revive this channel one more time and get this video to 100 likes by tomorrow, I will drop the next part and another What If video along with a stream right after this hits its goal. Come on guys, I know we can do it. I am trying to revive this channel, but to do that I need each and every one of my supporters help out. So come help out, we can do it. And let's go. Where we last left off, Midoriya had just finished offering All For One his Sharingan in a spectacular fashion. And just to clarify this, Midoriya does not have this Mangekyo Sharingan. That sound effect at the end was an accidental effect that I put in but forgot to edit out. Unfortunately, I failed miserably in that, yes, but let's continue. He doesn't have the Mangekyo Sharingan. So Midoriya and All For One hashed out a plan and an agreement. While doing this, Midoriya informs All For One of the uses of his quirk, and All For One informs Midoriya that he would have little use for a quirk like that. He doesn't really necessarily see the same way that Midoriya does. Midoriya, however, convinces the power is worth having, even if he isn't the one who gets to use it. All For One insinuates something to Shigaraki. Deku doesn't pick up on it, however. Deku realizes everything, and he begins to follow the plan that he, All For One, and Shigaraki had comprised together. The plan made Deku visibly depressed and sad just thinking about it, but it was the only way. Midoriya heads towards the hospital where his mother is being held, and immediately is bombarded by press from local news stations to international. They all wanted Midoriya's story. The plan was underway. We then cut to All Might, who sees Midoriya on the news and quickly rushes to his location. Midoriya avoids answering any questions with the press and nearly gets in the hospital and to his mother's room. As soon as he opened the door, his heart failed. His mother's physical condition was tanking and she was now hooked up to life support machines. Midoriya, seeing this, lit a fire in him to save her even more and sat down to have a conversation with her in her near vegetative state. He told her that he would save her no matter the cost. That's when All Might came in and saw Midoriya. All Might was in his deflated form as to not pick up any attention. Deku asked, "How'd you get there?" All Might replied with, "I know someone at the hospital and pulled some strings." He walked towards Midoriya and embraced him. They sat down and All Might asked Midoriya what happened. Deku replied with, "I don't know." And when he said that, All Might looked Izuku in the eyes. He could tell that Izuku was telling the truth. Izuku then said, "All I can remember is someone continually saying to follow the plan." They exit the hospital an hour later, and Izuku now starts to answer some media questions. UA High School representatives arrives on the scene with All Might in tow, and he is now fully in costume. They defend Izuku as well as themselves in the matter, and Midoriya repeatedly answers questions which he
continually answers with "I don't know." After the interviews, Izuku is put in a hospital for checkups on his severe case, seemingly, of amnesia. He forgot an entire week of his life. It seemed really bad. Fortunately, they found no traces of trauma, physically or psychologically, and chalked it up to a guess that someone there had a quirk that could affect a person's memories. And Midoriya was let go. He went home, he slept. The next day, Deku went in and everyone in class was shocked to learn that Midoriya didn't remember anything. He was informed about the UA Sports Festival that was going to be held. All Might had forgotten to inform him, but Aizawa and the rest of the class told Midoriya what he mostly already knew from seeing the festival in the past. It was the real beginning of his journey to become a hero. Now we're ready to tackle a new arc. So, everything leading up to the sports festival goes like in canon, except UA now wants to put on the sports festival even more to show that they're proud. And they also are willing to take more precautionary measures to make sure students are safe. They start considering a dorm system that we have in place in canon now, but have yet to confirm it. So maybe in the future arc, we'll see the dorm system implemented a lot earlier than it is in canon. We get to the beginning of the festival, and everything goes pretty much like in canon, with the other classes and all that. They're a little bit more hesitant on, voicing their opinions on Class 1A, seeing what recently happened to Midoriya and all that. They still want to prove their worth, however. So, let's begin with the first event, the race. On the mark of the race, Midoriya activates his Sharingan and begins to get ready to sprint, and on start, he bursts off. He's in 10th place automatically at the beginning of the race. He's seeing as he doesn't have a quirk that could give him the ability to fly or skate on ice like Bakugo and Todoroki. He really is going to be a little bit behind in this race. Deku, however, picks up the pace, preparing to take on a robot that he was ready to fight. He deactivated his quirk in order not to show what he could really do with it yet. It was way too early to show that. Midoriya uses his already acute senses to dodge the robot's attacks. Then he powers up One for All, having full confidence in himself, and punches the robot, sending it flying. His arm, however, is completely fine. Yes, Midoriya in this What If will have a certain amount of control over One for All, more than in canon. However, he will not be a complete master. The punch was only 15% of his power. Midoriya doesn't know it, but from fighting with All Might and constantly training with him, he has control over the amount of power his body exudes. Anything over 15%, however, will result in broken bones. So yes, theoretically, Midoriya can hit 15% full cow right now, but he doesn't know what full cow is, and he doesn't really know how the One for All power works yet. Midoriya is just subconsciously powering up his arm. He's not really even trying that hard. It's just kind of coming to him. He's a bit of a prodigy when it comes to things like this. Midoriya activates his Sharingan and gets back into the race, while deactivating One for All. He stays in 7th place until the obstacle section of the race. Using his Sharingan, he can tell exactly where the places are to place his feet, having full spatial awareness. Midoriya jumps to 5th place. From there on, he advances to 4th, due to the person in 5th making a mistake. Midoriya has to think of a strategy quickly if he wants to get into 1st place, and he gets the idea. He stops running, and he places his feet firmly on the ground, deactivating his Sharingan, and he jumps using One for All in his legs. Midoriya doesn't know it yet, but subconsciously he keeps on deactivating his Sharingan because his body isn't able to handle both these quirks at the same time. He has One for All at 15%, which already is a big drain on Izuku. Even in canon, it's a big drain. But along with his Sharingan, it's not possible yet. So he has to deactivate one to let the other activate. He flies across the race. He flies from 4th to 3rd to 2nd and then to 1st. However, he has no way to land even though he is skilled due to his training with All Might. He still isn't dexterous enough to pinpoint land and do a mid-air backflip. He face plants himself into 1st place. Part 8.5. Due to his face eating the floor in the round prior, Midoriya is not able to participate in the cavalry battle. Instead, he is giving a round to recover and hopefully awaken from being unconscious. While Midoriya is unconscious, he sees a man with dark black hair and red eyes. He couldn't make out the man's face. It was odd. He wasn't sure if it wasn't himself. It couldn't be himself. He was right there seeing the man. The man oddly looks at Midoriya and he said, "It's gonna be alright." The man says this to Deku, and he also says that there are many things you don't know yet about his quirk. He continues this, following up by saying, "Power that we have is important. This is more than a simple quirk. The world is built on a foundation that is complicated and very complex. No one could ever understand it. No one except for us." The man continues going on with himself. He says, "We are some of the few who can understand. We understand through sight. You must learn how to use it." The man then says something extremely strange. "Harness your chakra. Harness your chakra. Harness your chakra. Just then, Midoriya wakes up from his lucid state and is informed that his next match is up next. Again, just like in canon, he is going to be fighting Hitoshi Shinzo. Deku is placed in the first match of the first round due to him being, completely absent and unable to participate in the cavalry battle due to his injury. The final event of the sports festival begins in Part 9. Part 9. Midoriya vs Shinzo is underway, and Midoriya wants to suss out Shinzo before activating his quirk. Shinzo of course gives Midoriya no chance to do this, and just like in canon, Deku falls into the trap that Hitoshi Shinzo uses. He uses his quirk Brainwashing. Shinzo says to Deku, I like you. You and me, we have a lot of common, your eyes and all, of course I saw. Your quirk, you don't seem, suited to be a hero, even though your ability is perfect for crime fighting, but I know that with a quirk like yours and a demeanor like you have, you can become a hero. Now walk off stage. Deku, being unable to control his body, walks off stage just like in canon. He gets a vision just like in canon, but this time, instead of past uses of one for all, it's 3 men in order of age. On the left, seemingly the oldest man who had black hair and red eyes. In the middle, the second oldest man with red eyes and black hair as well. And on the furthest right, the youngest man. The man is the exact same man, or he has the exact same silhouette as the man Midoriya saw in his unconscious state before, staring at him. He couldn't make out their faces strangely, and the old man started speaking. He says, this weak genjutsu will not stop you, will it? Asking an odd question that Deku could not even comprehend. You are the wielder of the Sharingan, one of the originals. He says. The youngest man steps forwards and walks towards Midoriya in his lucid, vision-like state, and he looks at Deku. He looks him in his face. He comes so close to Midoriya, their noses almost touch, and he remembers something about this man. His face, he could finally see it. It was the same face as his father's. Midoriya's Sharingan activated right when he was about to step out of bounds in tandem with All for One. In tandem with One for All. Shinzo felt an overpowering aura coming from Deku. Everyone in the arena felt it. Shinzo, seeing he couldn't beat Deku, decided to just walk out of the ring. He forfeited the match. Midoriya powered down, and the next matches happened pretty much exactly like in canon. Endeavor still approaches Midoriya before his match, and Shoto telling him the same thing, the same message. Deku responds with almost the same sentence, but at the end he adds something that is different from the one he gave Endeavor in canon, and he says that we are better than you instead of, we aren't you. Midoriya vs Todoroki begin. Deku thinks it's better to start by closing the distance. Taking time to strategize could lead to him failing, so he doesn't do this like he did in canon. He activates his Sharingan, and for the first time, everyone in the arena really gets a good look at it because the camera guys zoom in on it. Midoriya's terrifying eyes, everybody could see them. He sprints quickly at full speed at Shoto, hoping to engage him in hand-to-hand combat, where he knew he would probably almost certainly win. Shoto has seen Deku's hand-to-hand combat, so he doesn't really want to get into a hand-to-hand fight with him. He tries to keep his distance by hurling huge ice blocks, huge ice spikes, like he did in canon at Izuku. However, unlike in canon, Midoriya is able to predict this using his Sharingan, jumping on and across them. However, this is taking a toll on Deku, draining him of his stamina. He can still go on, but as soon as he comes face to face with Shoto, he is gonna start losing a little bit of his stamina. Shoto then keeps on, putting out the ice spikes, and Midoriya keeps on advancing. When he gets face to face with him, he starts breaking Todoroki down using knowledge of basic hand-to-hand combat due to training with All Might. While still beating Shoto up, he seriously says, you aren't gonna use your powers against me. He says that he thinks that little of him. He asks Shoto that you really think that I'm not worth fighting seriously? He's edging Shoto more and more to, using his power. And he's also edging Shoto more and more to the edge of the fighting arena. And right when he gets to the edge of the fighting arena, he says that, I get it, your dad's an asshole, but that power, it isn't his, it's yours. Deku then proceeded to kick him out the ring mercilessly. And as soon as he heard that, and as soon as Shoto saw the kick, and as soon as he began falling, something clicked in him. He used the right side of his body, finally using his flames to lift himself up and prevent himself from falling outside of the ring. Deku immediately backs off. He retreats almost 2 meters back, and he's now almost on the other side of the ring, on the edge of the other side of the ring. Todoroki was serious now. He shot fire at Deku, which Midoriya could barely dodge, keeping the distance between them. He continually did this, working Deku's stamina down. The heat from the flames were oddly familiar and comforting to Deku, though he slowly started to gain more and more confidence moving closer while dodging the attacks. It really was time for him to start getting a little more serious about fighting. Eventually, he came face to face with Shoto again, turning off his Sharingan and powering up his arm with One for All. And Shoto quickly put an ice wall up, which Midoriya didn't completely shatter, but just made a gaping hole in. Deku then reactivated his Sharingan. Shoto then moved from defense to offense, using his ice to slide on, like he did in the race, and his fire to provide a stellar offensive barrage, but still providing a wall to protect him with. Deku had nowhere to go. He had to face the heat. Something in his eye twinkled. He couldn't stop thinking about his lucid dream, and he couldn't stop thinking about how much fun he was kind of having. Deku then ran towards the fire, subconsciously pulling his arm back and activating it with All for One at a high percentage, at a lot higher percentage than he was using before. That's when, of course, Cementos comes, because Midoriya had both the Sharingan and One for All activated, and Todoroki was going probably for the kill. A wall between them became noticeable, and they both couldn't stop the massive clash at that point. So, just like in canon, a massive clash happens. When the dust clears, Deku is in the ring on his stomach, his arm broken terribly and his eyes closed. Shoto is in a shield of ice, still in the ring, but unconscious as well. It was a draw. Both contestants unable to compete, so the prize for one goes to Bakugo. He's number 1. Part 9.5. Deku is hospitalized. Just like in the original, All Might praises Deku, saying how proud he is of him. Just like in canon, he is warned, undergo surgery, and when Izuku comes out, All Might is waiting for him. Izuku breaks down and confesses something different to All Might this time, and he tells him about the nights that he would go out back in the other parts, looking for trouble. He breaks down about his mother and tells All Might that he should find a new successor, because he can never be a true hero. Just like in canon, All Might tells Deku about him being quirkless, and this time they can't return to the stadium as the events are over by the time Deku gets out of surgery, because it's a lot more tedious procedure. He puts the key in his lock when he gets home and turns his door handles, and he walks into his place, puts on his bag and heads towards the kitchen, and he sees something strange. A tall, slim man with dark black hair standing in the kitchen with a photo of Izuku and his mom in his hand. The man had his eyes focused on the photo, then he looked up slowly. He was crying. Deku sees the man's bright red eyes with multiple irises, the shape of a spinning wheel. The man says to Midoriya, "Hey, son." Well, guys, that's it for this episode. Hopefully you liked it. Like, comment, subscribe, check out the Patreon, all that fun jazz, and don't forget the 100 like goal that I set. Come on, we can do it. And the next part of this video will drop tomorrow if we're able to do it, so get it done. Peace. Peace. I sorry if my voice sounds a little bit weird. I'm sorry. I can't get a hang of it this episode. Sorry, I'll get a hang of it soon. Sorry.
Midoriya? Yes, doctor. I'm sorry. I was thinking. No, it's alright. Like I was saying, we have the option to do an operation, but it's very risky with a 53% success rate.
In his room, he had put up a massive whiteboard, and he was connecting dots, thinking of ways to find a possible cure for his mom. Deku had been on a mission to find All for One. He burst off. You! Tell me where he is. When Deku awakens, he's in a place he's never seen before. Meanwhile, Rocky says, "Hey, kid, tell me something. How do you know about him?" Deku! 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 Wake up! Wake up! Bakugo says, "Deku, come on! All Might's dead! All Might's dead!" Deku wakes up and looks around.
Let's go, people. What if Deku had the Sharingan Part 10? Where we last left off, Deku had just come face to face with his father. And now, we flash forward. The time unidentified.
Use your knowledge and go to follow the plan perfectly.
You know I'm here. Give me the power now. Midoriya falls over, passing out in cold sweats in the present. He awakens in his room. He quickly gets up and rushes to the kitchen in search of his father, because that's the last place he's been, right? And he's not there. So Midoriya goes to the living room, and there he is. He's actually there, staring blankly into the TV screen. He's watching one of Deku's old All Might DVDs. He had his eyes glued to the screen. He then suddenly spoke.
Izuku, I know this must be a lot for you to take in right now, but I had to come back for your mother's sake and your sake. I had to,
he says. He then follows this up with,
I've been given an extended leave off of work.
Midoriya, of course, is still very rattly, so he had no time to, give a comeback and, be snarky, be an Uchiha. You know what I mean? So he really had to listen. He said this.
I heard about your mom and planned my trip here immediately. And then I saw the news that you went missing and I accelerated those plans to a really fast level. And when I saw you were back and had amnesia, I abandoned those plans and I came here right away. I need you to know that
I love you, son, he says. No, you don't, Midoriya responds with. As he's back in the game. He's back being a bratty Uchiha. He says, you don't even know me. You could have just called, huh? You just show up here unannounced, huh?
I'm sorry, son.
Don't call me that. And those messages through the visions. Why?
What messages?
It probably was something to do with your quirk. You, the three men at the sports festival. Deku Sharingan activates. Izuku, his father says. I have no idea what you're talking about. Seriously. Shut up, Deku responds with. Don't you dare call me by that name.
You mean the name I gave you?
Yes, Izuku responds with. You lost all right to it when you abandoned me and mom for your stupid job.
You mean when I left in order to provide for my family, huh? You have this roof over your head and food in the fridge because of me.
Deku does not respond to this. His dad then says, this isn't cheap, son. Finally, there's a moment of silence in the room, and Deku of course understands his father's point of view. He's grown a lot since, his bratty encounters with All Might, so he really knows that he needs to think about other people a little bit more. You can see some character development in this Uchiha version of Deku finally. So he understands his father's point of view, and as much as he would hate to admit it, Deku's father is, it's fair. And, Izuku's dad, he is of course guilt-ridden and pained for what he had to do, he had to leave his family just for the good of his family. And they both realize that they're both right in their own special ways, and they calm down the confrontation, and it goes down from a confrontation to a conversation. They both talk like father and son for a while, Deku informing him about what he's doing at UA and things like that. Izuku and his dad actually kind of bond. They talk for the entire night, and the next day Deku heads out for school at UA High. He gets noticed on the train just like in canon. Everything goes like in canon up to the hero naming. This is where you guys come in and give your opinion on the series again. Midoriya still doesn't have a hero name. Of course, it's the hero naming part of the canon, so we can change it up a little bit. Will his name be Deku again like in canon, or will it be something different? He could have his name be Uchiha. I was thinking about like something like that, something unique to his quirk, something unique, something having to do with Sharingan. Kind of also relates to the Naruto universe, because in this whatever I'm gonna start putting a little bit more of the Naruto universe back into this. So I kind of want it to be Uchiha, but if you guys think you have something unique, put it in the comments. Whatever comment gets the most like, or you know what I mean, so vote. So now everybody gets told about the field training arc, and Deku gets a lot more offers for his field training, of course, because he didn't end up blowing his arm off every time he went to go punch something, but he still ends up going with Gran Torino, as Gran Torino was All Might's sensei. Just like in canon, as we begin the hero arc, Gran Torino is training with Deku. They're training on One for All, not his other quirk right now. And Midoriya had just figured out Full Cowl on his first day of training. This knowledge was due to something outside of the box, something that is not like in canon. This knowledge was due to the return of his father. Gran Torino is really surprised of Deku's knowledge of controlling his power output. Like I said, due to the return of his father. Before Deku headed off on his field training, he had to inform his father because he had to get permission granted. This is part of the reason that his father is so important coming back, because his mother would not be able to give the permissions for Midoriya to participate in anything. When he tells his dad about the training, his father seems to get enticed, and a fire is seemingly lit under him. He asked Midoriya if he wanted to go out and train, and Deku said yes, and this is odd to him, however. His father, didn't really seem like the type. They go to the place where All Might and Deku would train. His father thinks it's a really nice spot. This brings a lot of memories back into Deku's mind. And it shows him how much he's grown over the last, few parts for us, but for him, it's only been a few weeks. Deku's father then activated his Sharingan and walked towards Midoriya. He says, "I've noticed that you've already unlocked the full power of your eyes. It took me years to do that." "What?" said Midoriya. "I thought you were not a fighter, Dad," said. His father responded with, "There are many things that you think you know, but don't know about me." Anyway, this shakes Deku up a little bit, but his father continues. "Anyway, I've been thinking about you and the visions you told me about." He says, "You'll begin to have more as the power of the Sharingan eludes itself to you. It never did that to me, however." He says, "Something else must be in place on," and he looked at Deku very sternly in the eyes. Deku then says to his dad, "I'm sorry." He comes out and he admits everything about One for All and all that. Deku's dad then deactivates his Sharingan. He tells Deku that this is a technique that he will probably learn but may possibly never be able to, as it's very advanced. Deku's dad says, "To learn how to do techniques like this with your eyes, to learn how to do techniques like this with your power, you will have to control the energy in your body." Now, what you've been telling me about that other power inside of you, it seems like controlling the energy in your body will be the way to unlock its full potential as well. Deku shows some knowledge of doing this, like I said before, due to his past training with All Might, but he didn't consciously know what he was doing. He now did. Deku's father had taught him a technique to control energy that was flowing through his body. Deku's father taught him a technique that his father called chakra control. Well, that's it, guys. Remember to vote on the poll and tell me down in the comments if you like the direction the series is going in, and if you want more. Keep on giving me some encouragement. Also, what do you guys think Deku father's knows? Like, he knows something and he used a power on Deku using his eyes. That's really weird. Is this like genjutsu? Do you guys think it's genjutsu? And what do you think his goal is? What do you think he's really doing here? Because it seems really weird. Obviously he's his father, but he seems really kind of pushy. You know what I mean? And why does he know about chakra? Give me theories. And what do you think about those visions he's getting, that Deku is getting? Give me theories in the comments. And until next time, you already know, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun jazz. And peace.
Midoriya? Yes, doctor. I'm sorry. I was thinking. No, it's alright. Like I was saying, we have the option to do an operation, but it's very risky with a 53% success rate.
In his room, he had put up a massive whiteboard, and he was connecting dots, thinking of ways to find a possible cure for his mom. Deku had been on a mission to find All for One. He burst off. "You! Tell me where he is." When Deku awakens, he's in a place he's never seen before. Meanwhile, he says, "Hey, kid, tell me something. How do you know about him?"
Where we last left off, Deku had just come face to face with his father. And now, we flash forward. The time unidentified.
Leave that knowledge ago to follow the plan perfectly.
You know I'm here. Give me the power now. Yo! What's good, everybody? I'm back. And I came here to bring you guys a video that you guys have been asking for the longest. I am going to be continuing this series, and I am going to get it finished in at least a month. Give me a month, guys, and you'll have all the parts of this very lovely series. Anyway, guys, let's get towards the video. What if Deku had the Sharingan Part 11? Where we last left off, Midoriya had finally learned chakra control, unlocking full control over his Sharingan and full cowling at 15%. Deku has yet to try to combine these two abilities, however, so that's what he and Gran Torino work on for the foreseeable future. We fast forward past that point and move on to the Stain arc. Everything unfortunate that happens to Ida does go according to the canon with Ida. His brother is hospitalized and he's out for Stain. Midoriya becomes aware of this and the hero killer. Remember, Deku seemingly can't remember anything that happened to him when he was with the League of Villains, so he doesn't remember Stain. Stain, however, remembers him. let's fast forward past all the drama and go towards the Stain fight. Deku finds Stain while coming around the corner using One For All for a speed boost, just like in the original. Gran Torino still teaches Midoriya to move like him, with speed and precision. Deku appears and punches Stain. Stain immediately recognizes him for the time he and Shigaraki had met. That kid, he was there. Ida still states that ever since Stain had sliced him with his sword, he hasn't been able to move. Midoriya hears this and the fight starts. Coming to save your friend, huh? But you should understand, I have a duty to kill him. Yes, I know you do, Midoriya will respond with. You're a villain. I have to save him. I'm a hero. Wasting no time, Midoriya, like in the original, would bolt towards Stain, trying to dodge his sword, faking him out, and getting a clean smash on his head. Now, Midoriya having the Sharingan and training with All Might would already give him great mobility, so the graze he got from Stain in the original wouldn't have happened here when he was flipping away from the hero killer. Stain realizes why Deku was there on that day. This kid was special. Midoriya bursts towards Stain again. Stain backs up, dodging Midoriya's attack. Stain then counterattacks, swinging his sword down towards Deku's arm in an effort to cut his arm clean off. Midoriya twists midair and uppercuts Stain, lifting him up. He then lands on his feet. Stain is still midair, hurling from the blow to the chin. Deku launches himself to the side of the alleyway, just like Gran Torino. It's very Gran Torino-like, and smashes Stain in the head again. Remember guys, these are 15% One For All smashes. Stain was almost KO'd by one critical hit on the head from one of these in the original. Stain was really in pain, but a critical hit was yet to be landed, so he was fine for now. Deku's strength would cause Stain to get serious a lot quicker, because not only is he fighting so a pro won't arrive, he's fighting against an opponent who seemingly is superior than him. Stain kicks it into high gear, shaking off the pain and bursting towards Deku. He threw a knife at Midoriya, which Midoriya dodged easily. This gave Stain the chance to pick up his speed, coming face to face with Deku. He threw one of the swords upwards and sliced to the left with another sword. Deku dodged the first, but forgot about the second sword. He looked up to see the sword coming down. Then, Midoriya looked forwards to see Stain with a knife charging towards him again. He was stuck. He was going to get cut if he dodged either one. Midoriya sat there, not knowing what to do. Stain charging, the sword falling down. What would happen? What? That's when Todoroki arrives. Todoroki arrived on the scene and uses his fire to repel Stain, giving Deku a chance to dodge the falling sword. Stain was tenacious, however. Now seeing that another hero in training had already given him a run for his money, Stain was really getting scared, seeing two of these heroes in training arriving. With two of these heroes in training on him, Stain picked it up. He got serious. He gave it his all, charging towards Ida. Todoroki moved Ida and the other hero away with his ice. Deku backed up behind Todoroki, being wary of Stain. Deku knows that he has to do something quick. Stain is seriously a man on a mission, and if he doesn't move soon, Stain will eventually catch up to Ida. So Deku does something out of character. I mean, out of character for him in the original, but very in character for him in this series. He yells out, "Stain! You haven't even touched me yet. You'll never get to your prey." This distracted Stain, causing him to put all the attention on Deku, exactly what Midoriya wanted in the first place. Todoroki asked Deku, "What are you doing?" Midoriya responded with, "Trust me, I got it. Just protect Ida." Deku was getting serious, stepping forward as Stain, in anger and frustration, ran towards him, trying to blitz him as quickly as possible. He picked up the sword Stain had left on the floor. He gripped it tight like a vice, turning around to face Stain, who was still charging towards him angry. He turned off One For All and closed his eyes. "One For All! Full cow! Sight style!" Deku yelled out. In a burst of raw energy and finesse, Deku activated his Sharingan and One For All at 10% at the same time. He did all this after his training with Gran Torino. Gran Torino and his father's training conditioned Deku, and he really learned how to control his chakra in a way that allowed him to activate both these powers both at the same time. Deku, however, couldn't use his 15% full cow with his Sharingan. For some reason, his chakra didn't flow well. It was like a lot of power was coming to him at the same time. Combining these two quirks was going to be a really difficult task, and Deku was all up for it. Using this 10% and Sharingan combination would give him a power increase anyway. It would actually give him more of a power increase. So this really worked out in his favor. Activating his Sharingan at 1 for all at 10% at the same time created a change of color in his aura and eyes. Instead of the usual scarlet and red pupils and black irises, his pupils were a light blue with a hint of red and green in them, and they had gray irises, and his aura was a light gasoline color. This came as a shock to Ida, Todoroki, and even Stain, who was taken aback by this sudden transformation. Now, the real battle would begin. Anyway guys, that'll be it for this part. If you guys want to find out what happens next, spam up those comments. Let me know. How am I supposed to know if you guys want the series to continue if you guys don't go dummy on that like button and spam up those comments? Boys, let's get this video and channel a push it needs. Spread the series around to people. They deserve to love this as much as we do. And I promise you guys a surprise video. So that's what you'll get. You'll get a surprise video very soon, dropping in the next few days. If you haven't already, join the Discord. I'm in there all the time. It's just me and the boys. We like chilling and stuff. We even started our own Minecraft servers. Come on guys, it's really fun. You have the chance to talk to me and other like-minded individuals. You even have the chance to recommend me anime series and also give ideas for what ifs. A lot of the what ifs that you guys see on this channel were actually ideas given to me by people in the Discord. So come through, come to the Discord, talk to me, talk crap, you know, make fun of anime, and chill out. Anyway guys, like usual, like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun jazz. Peace.
Midoriya? Yes, doctor. I'm sorry. I was thinking. No, it's alright. Like I was saying, we have the option to do an operation, but it's very risky with a 53% success rate.
In his room, he had put up a massive whiteboard, and he was connecting dots, thinking of ways to find a possible cure for his mom. Deku had been on a mission to find All for One. He burst off. You! Tell me where he is. When Deku awakens, he's in a place he's never seen before. Meanwhile, he says, "Hey, kid, tell me something. How do you know about him?" Where we last left off, Deku had just come face to face with his father. And now, we flash forward. The time unidentified.
Use that knowledge you go to follow the plan perfectly.
You know I'm here. Give me the power now. Yo, what's good everybody? I'm back for another video. I'm gonna be giving you guys the what if that you guys been wanting for the last, I don't know, 3 days. And that's what if Deku about the Sharingan part 12. Where we last left off, Midoriya had activated both his Sharingan and 1 for all at the same time versus Stain. Now, the real battle would begin. Deku burst off while Stain ran towards him. Deku had Stain's sword in his right hand, remember that, and Stain swung towards Midoriya's left. Deku dodged easily. He swung amateurly with his right, using the sword to force Stain to back up. This gave Deku a chance to show his new ability. Stain, he jumps back, anticipating when Deku's next attack will be. So, the jump back that Stain does is not a very far one, but it's still a decent one, giving Stain enough space to, hopefully counterattack once Deku, finishes his attack. That's when Midoriya disappeared. Where he had gone, nobody knew. He was just there. He couldn't have vanished. Stain started thinking, no, he
He couldn't have. Todoroki and Ida looked on in awe as Deku seemingly disappeared. Deku then reappeared behind Stain. Stain had no time to react. Stain was literally a sitting duck, just waiting for Midoriya to attack him and knock him clean out. Was this it, he started to think? Was it over? Was everything he'd done? Becoming the hero killer? Going through all that trauma? Was it all just so he could fall to a high schooler? But this kid was special. Deku was swinging with his hand towards Stain, but it was like everything was moving in slow motion. Stain whispered something underneath his breath. Ida and Todoroki couldn't hear it, but Izuku, he heard Stain loud and clear. With a simple chop to the neck, Deku KO'd Stain. Just like that, the battle was over in seconds. But just between Stain and Deku, that 2-second period where Midoriya had disappeared, that felt like a century. As Stain fell in defeat, Todoroki looked at Midoriya in his new state. What? How? How had he learned all that in 2 weeks? Just 2 weeks before, Deku, he couldn't even throw a punch without shattering his arm and potentially harming everyone around him. Just 2 weeks ago, his powers, they seemed like they were 2 separate quirks trying to work together, but now it seemed like it was one quirk. It all worked in tandem. Just 2 weeks ago, Midoriya had no idea how to do that disappearing technique. He didn't know how to run on walls. He didn't know what to do in a combat situation such as this. What was Deku becoming? Deku had used the body flicker technique. His father had taught this technique to him while he was learning to control his chakra. It was the first technique he learned with chakra control. His father told him that this was a basic technique that he would have to learn if he was to master and control his power within him. So that's what Deku did. He learned how to control the power within him and activated the body flicker technique. Deku's father never told Izuku where he learned this technique or how he learned it. He simply just said that it was passed down. So Deku just guessed that it was passed down through the Midoriya family, through the Midoriya clan. Maybe it was a technique that somebody in his family knew, like his uncle or maybe his grandfather. He never really got to know. As we flash forward back to the Stain fight, Midoriya powered down as Todoroki, Ida, and the pro hero secured Stain. Endeavor arrives on the scene with the authorities like in canon, and they asked, "Did you kids do this?" Todoroki, he actually replied, "No," and he pointed at Midoriya saying, "He did." Endeavor looked at Deku in awe and in questioning. There was literally no way, right? He's strong. He's seen him fight before in the tournaments. He knows about his grades. People are talking about him around UA. He's strong, but he's not that strong. He's simply just a high schooler, right? There's no way he could single-handedly take down a villain on the level of the hero killer. They clear up business. And Deku is informed that he can't ever tell anybody about what he just did. And Endeavor, he must be the one to take all the glory and claim for defeating Stain. Now, we know Midoriya's personality in this what if. He's rash and sometimes bratty. It would be very difficult for him to, swallow that pill, that the work he had just done for the last 2 weeks, that, fighting Stain, all that would have just been accredited to Endeavor. So yeah, Midoriya did end up making a scene with Endeavor and the authorities. He said, "What? I trained for this. I fought Stain. It was me. It was me who had to take the blows. It was me who had to. I know it's the law, but you can't bend it for me? Please, Kid, don't let what you have go to waste. Do you hear me? You were meant to be a hero. Step aside and let me deal with this one." Deku accepted that nothing in his situation would change, and he actually allowed Endeavor to claim he was the one who defeated Stain. He then looked back towards Shoto Todoroki and he said, "Shoto, never lose to him again." Endeavor then left. Deku, Ida, and Todoroki prepare to leave the area. Midoriya tells him to go ahead. He would stay back on his own. They allowed him to, and Ida and Todoroki head towards the station to give their reports. Midoriya headed back towards the alleyway, where he had just fought Stain, where Ida has just been injured, where all of that mess had just went back down. He walked towards an object that was glistening in the dark night, and he picked it up. It was the sword he had dropped. It was Stain's sword. We move on towards the final exam arc. Deku had made some changes to his hero costume. His costume was now red with blue, and he had a sword sheath on the back of his costume, with stained sword in it. Nobody of course knows it's stained sword, as Deku would never actually let that information be divulged to anybody. Deku covered up the red taped handle with black tape. Even Todoroki and Ida are clueless to Midoriya's outfit changes. They just think, oh, it's a cool addition, it kinda goes with your cool powers, so hey, it is what it is, I guess. Deku and Bakugo are still placed in the same team together against All Might. Of course, the All Might fight would change, but the end result would always be the same. They end up making it out together with All Might. We don't really have to focus on that, as that's not really a focal point in the story overall, so we move on. They make it out together this time even though they didn't even work together, so that's a big change, but we still move on. Deku does not show off any new abilities as he didn't have to, opting to use the basic Sharingan in this encounter with All Might. Now, the UA students all have to start prepping for the forest training arc, and what Midoriya does to prep is work on his sword fighting skills. How will Deku use his sword fighting skills against Muscular? Will he be able to defeat him? What is going to happen? What is going to change? Well guys, that'll be all for this part. If you enjoyed the video, you already know what to do. And if you want to see an episode of this come out in the next 3 days, you already know what to do. I want you to get this like goal, 100 likes in the next 3 days, and I will drop an episode right away. This episode actually took longer because I was working on the like goal video. The like goal video for this video, the Sharingan episode. I had to make some remakes to this part, taking stuff out, adding stuff in, to make sure that I had enough story that would stretch me out for a 20-25 minute video. So if you guys want to see me make another 25-minute videos, which is something I haven't done in months, you already know what to do. Anyway guys, like I always do, I'm going to advertise you guys the Discord server. It's right down there in the description, and we're going to be making an RP server soon, so that'll be really cool. You can come in and make your own original character, and we're going to be fighting against some bots together. Anyway guys, like always, like, comment, subscribe, and all that fun jazz. And I will actually see you very, very soon, as I'm going to be streaming really soon. Peace. Yo, I'm back for another video guys, and I'm back in my setup, and yeah, I'm sorry this video has taken at least a week. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to fix that. As I said before, I'm prepping to start daily uploads, and I'm prepping for other announcements on this channel, so just stay tuned and stay aware because some big changes to the channel are coming. What if Deku had the Sharingan part 13? We last left off, we were moving on to the forest training arc like in canon. Aizawa explains to class 1A that this will be an opportunity for them to train their quirks, for them to get bigger, for them to get faster, and for them to get stronger. Midoriya takes these words very seriously, and he locks in. He hones in on what he wants to accomplish, to get better at sword fighting, and to find new ways to use his quirk, so that he can become a more versatile fighter. Midoriya sets these goals because he's been combat training since the very beginning of the story, unlike in canon, where he would start combat training much later, meaning that in his head, he already is finding new conditions and finding new ways to advance his abilities. He's not playing around. He wouldn't want to give Bakugo a chance to outshine him, would he? Just like in canon, everyone arrives at the camp and they are introduced to the heroes hosting the camp. They each individual carve out a training regimen for their each individual different quirks and all their power differences, abilities, and everything like that. When they get to Deku, they ask him, "What's your quirk? Tell us everything you know about it. Its strengths, its weaknesses, everything." Well, it's a strength enhancing power and an ocular ability that allows me to predict the movements of others. It also allows me to control the energy in my body so I can do things a normal person can't. What do you mean? One of the pussycats says. Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Basically, I can teleport. What? One of the pussycats says. Yeah, Midoriya would respond with, I do it by pulling all my energy outwards towards my body, allowing me to move super fast. It's hard to control, but the technique is relatively simple. I can show it to you if you don't believe me. Deku then uses the body flicker, going from the right to the left in a flash. See, it's kinda hard to control, so I can only really go side to side right now. But if Deku activated full Kao sight style. I've only ever done this once, he said, so it might be a little bit inaccurate. Using the body flicker, Deku disappeared. Where he just was, there was a small crater. Mandalay, one of the pussycats, was surprised to see that Izuku had seemingly vanished. When she heard the noise again, she looked behind her to see Deku. She had a shocked look on her face. Midoriya simply powered down and said, "Sorry, I kinda went too far." She looked up to see another small crater multiple meters away from where Midoriya had started. Deku just looked up and smiled. This kid, he was scary. He had no noticeable weaknesses in his quirk or in his hero styles. So, the Pussycats allowed Deku to have his own training regimen. They allowed him to customize what he wanted to do for the time he was going to stay at that training camp. Deku went on training by himself. He worked on whatever he found necessary, as the Pussycats couldn't really teach him much. This was the perfect opportunity for Midoriya. Every day, he would start with pretending that he was training his Sharingan by having a ball dispenser throw balls at him, but he would pretend he was having a hard time dodging. And when no one was looking, he would sneak away into the forest. He would run on trees, practicing his mobility. Eventually, he would work on chakra control. He would work his chakra control into this running on trees and all that mobility stuff, and he would teach himself how to walk up trees and how to run upside down. He would also practice his sword fighting with Stain's sword, hacking away at trees. This was fun and all, but he had gotten to another wall. His sword fighting wasn't improving, and he was really as good as he could get mobility wise with the percentage of 1 for all he was using. So he decided, maybe I should finish that technique that Dad taught me. I wonder if I'm good enough now. Let's see if I can remember properly. Deku started weaving hand signs, and taking a deep breath in, Deku prepared himself for an attack. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Deku had created a small fireball, one that was barely passable as a jutsu, but he had finally done it. He was joyous, as the week he had trained with his dad wasn't a waste, and he was nowhere close to doing this advanced technique during that week. Yes, Deku said. He started again, weaving the hand signs slowly and amateurishly, but he still was doing it nonetheless, and Deku yelled out for the second time, "Fireball, fire style jutsu." This was an even smaller fireball. It was way smaller than the last one, even though, he thought he was getting better at it. Deku began to feel very, very tired and very sluggish after this attack. He began to think, did all the training cause him to get that tired? He wasn't even feeling that tired before he did the last, few jutsu. He didn't feel like that before the attack, so Deku went to power up full Kyle Sight style, to get out of the forest and get back to the Pussycats and everybody else, as it was starting to get a little bit dark. And he tried, but it didn't work. He was confused and tired. He didn't know it at the time, but I think we all understand what had just happened. Deku had ran out of chakra. It suddenly became dark as the sun set quickly over Deku's head. He didn't even realize how late it had become. He was out there for too long today. He had to get back very quickly. That's when he heard noises behind him. He looked behind him to see what it was, and it was Moonfish. He was moving towards Deku with his quirk, blade teeth. What was going on? Midoriya didn't know. Midoriya quickly made the assessment that yes, this was a villain. Why else would he be here? It was happening again, just like the USJ attack. That guy, he was making a move. Midoriya, however, did not remember anything that happened to him with the League of Villains, so he immediately hid. He had no chakra to go after this villain and fight him, so he started hiding in trees. And when Moonfish would advance in the same path that he was going down, Deku would try and find a way to just quickly hide and try to get back towards the camp. He couldn't keep this up forever though. He would have to face Moonfish. Moonfish was advancing so quickly that eventually he would have caught up with Deku and find him and attack. Midoriya would quickly try to get his energy back, but everything he was trying wasn't working. Resting, but it just wasn't doing anything to help him with this problem. Eventually, Midoriya, he would have to face Moonfish.
First of all, we'll have to establish some ground rules. Alright. Deku, in this universe, is born with a quirk. This quirk is chakra. Deku has energy flowing within him. Everybody in our new My Hero Academia universe has it as well. We're gonna say that everybody else in the My Hero Academia universe manifests their chakra in the ability of specially tailored quirks. And the way that the chakra got passed down into the world is when somebody ate a chakra fruit. For the next few years in Deku's life, his eye quirk would prove to be more than useful. when he could of course activate it allowed him to see things way better than any other person could, and he could copy the actions of people quickly and easily. You don't look strong, kid. And I don't think you're someone that will benefit from a quirk like that. It could be a real force, but you as you are, not number one. Young Midoriya, I came here to thank you. If you hadn't moved, I would have been a bystander. You gave me the courage to go out there, even after I shattered your dreams and told you you wouldn't be number one. You still went out there. All Might looks at him and says, every hero has a story. He looked All Might in the eyes the same way a son would look up to his father. All Might says, calm down. I just gave you my power. What power? All Might says, the power that I have now is not originally mine. It is a power that was passed down generation through generation. It's called One for All. Deku's face slowly went from the look of pride in his father to confusion. Deku's Sharingan deactivated on its own, and Deku took a step back. Midoriya? Midoriya? Midoriya, are you there? Midoriya, are you alright? All Might says. Deku put his head down. All Might said, let's sit down so I can explain this better. No! I think you explained a lot, All Might. Deku would lift his head up and was staring All Might in his eyes. He said, you think I'm weak? The look of both pride and confusion was gone. The only thing that was left was a look of disgust in Deku's eyes. He continues to yell, you think I'm weak? For some reason! This echoes through the breach. I'm gonna try to say something, but Deku cuts him off, saying you've had your chance to talk, and now it's mine. You never really believed in my power, did you? All Might stutters, tried to look for the words to describe himself. No! You didn't get to talk. You flat out lied to me the day you said you think I could become number one on my own power. She starts crying, and it starts raining. Deku runs and runs and runs towards the beach. He gets there, and he sees All Might sitting where they would usually sit and eat, with umbrellas up, and All Might is eating ramen. In Deku's chair, there's a burrito. Deku sees this and starts crying and laughing. All Might sees Deku. Their eyes lock, and All Might gets up and walks over to Deku. They both hug each other for about 2 minutes straight. They sit down and talk for about 2 hours straight. Suddenly, the rain stops. That's when suddenly, the rain stops, and Deku gets a phone call. It's from the hospital. They say his mom was in intensive care, and had entered the emergency room an hour and 30 minutes ago. That was 30 minutes after he left the house. Midoriya? Midoriya? Yes, doctor. I'm sorry, I was thinking. No, it's alright. Like I was saying, we have the option to do an operation, but it's very risky with a 53% success rate. And what if it fails? If it fails, it would end in death or permanent disabilities. If it succeeds, she would return to her old state. Is there anything else I could do? No, I'm afraid. You can have the time if you need to think about this and go ahead. But we will inform your mother when she awakens. 0.3 meters. You happy? He looks up at his eye. Tears. Young man, life isn't fair. Like I said, you don't get to say that. Oh yeah? Deku balls up his fist and looks up at Aizawa with a death glare. We've all been through it, you know. Deku's fist went from clenched to flat within a matter of one word. Deku's still glaring, however. The feeling of not knowing if someone you care about will live or die is an extremely tough one. I know. But when you're a hero out there trying to save lives, you can't just let your emotions get the best of you. You have to fight through the pain, Izuku. Deku just grunts and walks away.
That guy had to have something suspicious going on. He had to be in the community center of evildoers. Deku went to the exact same building that night, looking for Stain, but he was nowhere to be found. Stain was now. He burst off. You! Tell me where he is. When Deku awakens, he's in a place he's never seen before. That's when Shigaraki says, "Hey, kid, tell me something. How do you know about him?" Deku! 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 Wake up! Wake up! Bakugo says, Deku, come on! All Might's dead! All Might's dead! Deku wakes up and looks around. He's surrounded by rubble. Buildings toppled on top of each other. Deku looks up and he sees a man. He sees a monster holding All Might's dead body. He sees All for One. Deku reaches down. He unsheathes his sword. He stands up tall. Tears come out of his eyes. Deku then activates his Sharingan. He then activates One for All. And the unison clashes. He has One for All, the Sharingan.
Leave them while let you go. To follow the plan perfectly.
You know why I'm here. Give me the power.
Izuku, I know this must be a lot for you to take in right now, but I had to come back for your mother's sake and your sake. I had to, he says. He then follows up with, I've been given an extended leave off of work.
Where we last left off, Midori had finally learned chakra control, unlocking full control over his Sharingan and full cowling at 15%. Deku has yet to try to combine these two abilities, however, so that's what he and Gran Torino work on for the foreseeable future. Deku finds Stain while coming around the corner using One for All for a speed boost, just like in the original. Gran Torino still teaches Midori to move like him, with speed and precision. Deku appears and punches Stain. Stain immediately recognizes him for the time he and Shigaraki had met. That kid.
Yo, what's good everybody, it's me, Big Deku, back from the video. Today I bring you guys What If Deku Had the Sharingan, the movie. This is the finale for the entire series. It's been around the channel for about a year and a half now, and it's the thing that really got me my start on YouTube. I've been trying my best over the last week and maybe another few days to make this the best it can possibly be. I originally started working on this 2 to 3 months ago, but a lot has changed. The original script for the video wasn't very true to the original plan that I had for this series, so I changed it about a week ago so it can fit the original plan that I had for this series, following the very first outline for any What If I created, the original What If Deku Had the Sharingan outline. It's crazy to think that this would be the most popular video on my channel. When I originally started, I was just, a kid recording a video in his bedroom, and I'm still just a kid recording a video in his bedroom, but when I first started, I was recording on a, $20 mic that I got off Amazon, and the video was really, it wasn't bad, but it was really amateurish. My videos are still amateurish, I still record on a mic that I got from Amazon, but just to see the way my channel has developed, even though I'm not the biggest YouTuber around, and even though I left you guys for about a good solid 6-7 months, and I lost a lot of my fan base, it's great to see that, I'm still going with this YouTube stuff. And I still, love creating what ifs. I took a break from them for a while, but I still love creating scenarios for animes that I love. And What If Deku Had the Sharingan is one of the best series, if not the best series, I've ever made. It's sad to me that this is going to be an end, but hopefully it goes up with a bang. Anyway guys, I don't want to hold you guys up for too long. That recap was long enough. I'll see you on the other side. Where we last left off, Deku was in the forest training his newfound abilities that he had just recently learned from his father. Midori would hear noises like swords clashing against each other, nearing closer and closer to him. He headed towards these noises where he saw a moonfist barreling in the direction of the training area. Deku was all out of chakra, however, completely drained of energy after a long day of training. Midori would hide quickly, sneakily, going from tree to tree, trying to back up so he could head towards the training area where he could help from the pros. But he couldn't do it. He couldn't hold on to his position forever. Moonfist was nearing closer and closer to the camp and was doing it quickly. Midori couldn't keep up.
If he wanted to, he had to top Moonfish. He would have to come face to face with him in head-on combat. He steps out of the forest to face Moonfish, who immediately barrels back towards Deku. Midoriya dug deep, mustering any strength that he had, activating One For All on his finger at 100%, knowing that he only had one shot at doing this, and let off a huge gust of wind towards Moonfish, which sent Moonfish, who was clawing onto the ground with his blade teeth, flying a few meters back, and sent Deku flying in the opposite direction, back towards the camp. It was perfect, Deku started to think midair. Wait, what's going on? Is this all a part of the plan? He had, however, no time to focus. He had to maneuver in the air. He maneuvered in midair, simply doing this due to his beach training with All Might. He flipped through the air, landing at the camp gracefully. Exhausted, he burst through the camp doors, yelling, "Villains! Villains! They're here!" We next see Midoriya. He is mid-battle, dying of exhaustion. He had no choice but to get involved with the battle that was going on. You see, a child was stolen by one of the villains, taken for ransom. A little boy that Deku noticed would watch him and sneak off to the forest every day, but he never told anyone. The boy's name was Kota, and the villain was known as Muscular. He had taken the child. Deku would burst off onto the scene the second he heard all about this. He would find Muscular, away from the rest of the violence taking place at the camp. "Villain!" he yells emotionally. "Let the boy go!" Deku was seriously feeling himself. Exhausted and drained, he wasn't scared. Deep down, he knew that he'd win. And if he'd lose, this fool wouldn't even dare go against All For One's plan, so he and the boy would both survive. The battle begins with Deku charging towards Muscular's. Activating his 3 Tomoe Sharingan, he had to keep this fight hand to hand. If he used any of the little chakra he had on Jutsu, he would be doomed, so instead of that, he focused on 1-to-1, hand-to-hand, fist-to-fist combat. This was the area that he was extremely skilled in, even besting All Might at times using his hand-to-hand combat, but this villain was a complete brawler. His hits punched with the impact of one of All Might's hits. What's the source of this massive power? Deku starts to think. Deku would have to figure out if he wanted to win the battle. He would have to figure out a way to stop this man before he could really land a serious hit. Scoping the beast out, Deku found the source of his massive power reserves. His quirk allowed him to build up his muscles and use them on his opponents. Get rid of the muscles, get rid of him. Deku's entrancement on his quirk, thinking about the combined perception of the 3 Tomoe, was great enough for him to think and fight the musclehead. Even though he was still doing both of this, he still got caught up, catching a devastating blow to the chest, knocking the wind out of his lungs. The little amount of stamina he had was now gone, and he couldn't keep up the same level of speed as he could before. Left, right, left. Midoriya dodged, gassed as hell. He would put up an effort, but once the second fist hit his stomach with the impact of the first, he knew the fight was over. He got knocked back into the mountain. Kneeling over, holding his body in pain, Deku's vision blurred. His thoughts got hazy, and he passed out there and then.
Izuku, follow the plan, Izuku.
Deku! All Might's dead! All Might's dead! He's dead!
Deku, help! Help! Someone save me!
Screw the plan! Deku would awaken angered. He was knocked unconscious, but knocked out. While unconscious, he got visions of it all. All of them. all over again. He didn't want his mother to die, but he didn't want Kota to be kidnapped. He wasn't being a hero anymore. The path that he started down, it was becoming more and more of him. He was becoming corrupted by his wanting his mom, by the want to fix his life, for everything to go back to the way it was. He was causing everything to get weirder and worse and worse. He just wanted to go back to the times when he and All Might were on the beach. He charges towards Muscular in his fused Sharingan in One For All mode. His Sharingan was now tinted bluish green, and his body was now engulfed with the electric power of One For All. He, while speeding towards Muscular, drew his sword, Stained Sword, and when Muscular swung down towards Deku, Deku swung up, not aiming for his fist, however, aiming for his muscle tendon. He slices his muscles. His muscle tendon was sliced now deeply, and blood gushed out of it, and Muscular screamed in pain as it repaired itself. "Oh, I see," Deku then says seriously. "Your muscles repair themselves. Well, in that case," Deku then powers up his left hand with One For All, the one that didn't have the sword in it. "Smash!" he yells, and he hits Muscular with One For All to the face. His arm wasn't destroyed either. He was completely in control, even if it was just for a moment. He knew that it wouldn't be enough to stop this tough guy though, so he didn't let up. He used his speed to go behind the villain who was running backwards and delivered a stab to the villain's gut. He then withdrew his sword as Muscular threw his arms backwards. Deku flipped over his arms mid-air. With his sword in his hand, he sliced Muscular's left tendon simultaneously. Still spinning in mid-air, he began to power up his right leg. Then he came twirling down, yelling, 1,000,000% Delaware! Smash!
Follow the plan, Izuku, and your mother will live.
As the dust cleared, Deku stood up over Muscular, raising his hand in victory, then collapsed of exhaustion. When Deku awakened, he was in a hospital bed. He had gotten used to waking up in these at this point. He looked around to see his location, and he wasn't in UA. But where was he?
You're awake.
He looked over to the left to see Shigaraki. He couldn't say anything. He was frozen in fear. Why was Shigaraki there, and what was he gonna do with him?
You're pretty good, you know. To beat Muscular, one of our best, with this nonetheless.
Todoroki then stood up, pulling out Stain's sword from behind his back.
Did you beat him too? You know, it doesn't matter. That quirk of yours is really amazing.
Shigaraki then slowly places the tip of the blade on Deku's eye.
Remember the plan, Izuku? You were supposed to come peacefully.
He was gonna kill an innocent child.
Oh, isn't that sweet? You think you're a hero, boy? You can play hero all you like, but you're still here. You're nothing but scum, making a deal with the king of the underworld. You're no better than the rest of us, scum. You may think you're a hero, but the truth is, you're a villain. Just like me! Izuku. Now, come on. Let's go.
Where are you taking me?
We're going to go see the master. It's finally time for the final stage of the plan.
Shigaraki waits outside the door while Deku gets dressed. Deku thinks while he puts on his t-shirt and pants and grabs Stain's sword, which Shigaraki left on the bed, sheathing it behind his back on his jeans. Before he walked out the door, he took a deep breath. He said to himself internally, "Screw the plan." He walked out the door, forcefully and determined, only to be met with... They were in a hospital. Shigaraki looks at Deku's surprised face and lets off a smirk, saying to Deku,
Where'd you think we were? Come on, kid. Let's go. And keep a low profile, would you?
Shigaraki points up to a TV above him. Deku then looks at the TV and sees himself there. On the TV, he then sees Kota as well. Deku gives a sharp look at Shigaraki, who then shrugs and says,
We can't make it look like we were going after you only. people would get suspicious. Think we were continually targeting you. No. Come on. Let's go.
Deku ducks his head, putting his head down, following Shigaraki to wherever he was taking him. They hop in a car and are getting driven towards All For One's lair. When they arrive at All For One's lair, they are greeted with him. All For One.
You've done well to follow the plan, Izuku. Do you remember how this ends?
Yes, I do. Master.
Nice. Shigaraki,
Yes, Master.
take care of the boy. Get him ready.
Of course, Master. Deku and Shigaraki then leave, heading towards the room where Deku was held when he was captured by Shigaraki. When he was taken from the League of Villains lair into All For One's lair. This room had a lot of memories in it. Deku, walking towards it, even remembered everything that happened for those 2 weeks when he was captured, when he was a part of this. Deku walks out in the gown and now heads towards the med bay of the lair, where he's greeted with the doctor and is knocked out once more. The doctor operates on him, and when he wakes up, his right eye is gone, and he can only see out of his left. However, he feels something other than that. He feels like there was something more inside of him. He feels more powerful, like that something more made him more. It feels like when All Might gave him his quirk, but to a way lesser extent. Shigaraki then says to Deku,
Here is an eye patch. Let's go. It's time for the final part to begin.
Deku then walks out of the lair into a car where he's taken to the League of Villains hideout. When he gets in there, he sees all the members of the League and reaches for a sword instantly. Toga immediately recognizes his sword alongside Spinner, who says, "Why do you have that? Is that a lookalike?" "No, it's the real deal. Stain's sword." "Well, why do you have it, Brad? Some little hero wannabe who goes to UA doesn't deserve to wield Stain's sword. I have it because he gave it to me." "What? Stop lying. Stain wouldn't associate with a hero, Brad, especially one like you. After he was defeated by Endeavor, he said so himself. Hero Society is dead."
Endeavor? Do you really believe that? It wasn't Endeavor who beat Stain.
Helicopters shortly circled the area, catching glimpses of the seemingly captured Izuku amongst the League of Villains. All Might rushes to Kamino, where he is greeted with All For One, and the battle ensues. Deku's classmates, Uraraka, Todoroki, Ida, Kirishima, and Bakugo all came to the rescue for Deku. They were all dressed in disguises. Even Bakugo took part in this, who came to save Deku. Even though the relationship had been a bit rocky of late, they were still childhood friends at the end of the day, and he knew that Deku had gone through a lot. He was going through stuff with his mother and everything else. Without Deku on their side to devise a plan, the planning was all up to Uraraka, who had learned so much from Deku at this point. She wanted to save him at all costs, and tried her hardest to ultimately devise a plan to save Izuku. Meanwhile, All For One and All Might fought. Deku was trying his best to focus, trying his best to keep up the battle. He activates his one Sharingan that he had left, watching All Might and All For One duke it out. He's rooting for All Might, but he can't really let that be known to his now League of Villains members. He's kinda in with them on this entire thing, as this is all a part of the big plan. Then Deku secretly hears whispers. He turns around, and then behind him, Uraraka burst out, saying, "Deku, touch me." Deku now looks at the League of Villains members. It's all going in slow motion, staring at them in the eye, looking at Shigaraki, who reaches out towards Deku, trying to touch him with his quirk, but it's too late. Deku activates One For All, and jumps, touching Uraraka, then he floats off, getting away from all of it. All Might looks back, really relieved to see that Deku's okay, and now he knows he can go all out. The battle ensues seriously. I don't know, and I don't care. He's my son.
Funny. Tom thought the same of you. But look at her now. Dead.
You keep my master's name out of your mouth.
Did you know?
What?
Did you know that Shigaraki is Tomo's grandson?
The impact of that line hit All Might in the force of 1,000 punches. Anything that All For One could have done to him physically was never really much for All Might, but that was a blow. All For One, unlike in the original, took this opportunity, going ham on All Might while he was screaming, almost completely finishing him off. Deku had to intervene. Still floating in the air, he told Uraraka to release him, and he jumps down in the middle of the battlefield, facing off against All For One. All For One! He yells, "I'm All Might's successor!"
You think I didn't know that, Izuku Midoriya? What a stupid child you are.
All Might and Gran Torino watch all of this, as All For One spills the beans and everything that's been happening between him and Deku.
Not only do I have your teacher's grandson, All Might, your own successor betrayed you. He came to me for power, asking me about a quirk to save his mother. Isn't that right, Izuku? You chose the wrong one, All Might. And you'll pay for that mistake.
Deku then charged towards All For One, but not having the fealty of both his Sharingan, it wasn't going to be enough. All For One's speed and power outmatched Deku's. All For One would grab Deku by the neck, choking him out, slagging him to the ground with force. Gran Torino would come, but Gran Torino was no match for All For One either. He would get stabbed in his chest by All For One's stabbing quirk, and it seemed like it was all over. Even though All For One is in his full power, he was still no match for the rest of them. All Might, however, hadn't given up. Even though Deku had done all of this, he was still his successor, and he still saw Midoriya as a son. After everything they've been through together, he can never let something so trivial as this get in the way of their friendship. All Might burst off, using One For All to divert his power into his legs. Just like he did in the original, he would divert power from one limb to another, trying his best to save Deku. He grabs Deku, getting him out the way, and pushing him backwards towards the area where the League of Villains was. Shigaraki took this chance to charge towards Deku, angered and enraged. He wanted to make him decay. Deku vs Shigaraki was now in full force. Deku would get up, scrambling, and Shigaraki would go left, right on him, as close as possible to him. Deku had seen Shigaraki's quirk work before. He knew that if Shigaraki touched him, it was game over. So, using the one Sharingan that he had, he dodged and dodged and dodged. He had to activate Sharingan One for All mode, going full cowling, using both the powers at the same time. He would do this, and with this he was able to keep up with Shigaraki, and even outpower him, landing some crucial hits on him. But it wasn't going to be that easy, as the other members of the league started to gang up with him. Toga, Twice, all of them, they were all up against Deku, who was just barely hanging on. Yuraku, who got him out, knew that this was bad. If they went in, if they didn't, damn it, they would have to, cause Ida burst off to save Deku, just like Deku would burst off to save him before. Ida takes on Spinner, Bakugo takes on Magnet, and Todoroki takes on Dabi. The battle would rage on, as the other League of Villains members were just left as fodder to fight against Deku. Deku would have to use his full power. He powered up to the most he could stand. Just like he did with Muscular, he went 75% full cow. His Sharingan turned to greenish bluish color, and it was time for him to go all out. Meanwhile, All For One was still fighting All Might. All Might was trying his best to keep up, but with Gran Torino sustaining the injury that he sustained, he wasn't able to help All Might. It was just All Might versus All For One without Gran Torino's support. All Might was getting beaten, destroyed actually. He gave All For One the greatest hit he had left in him, as the helicopter cameras zoomed in on the encounter. The United States of Smash. Simultaneously, Deku went full cowling and went crazy, getting rid of Todoroki, getting rid of all the League of Villains members in one foul swoop with his own smash. The power in it was crazy, probably double that of one of All Might's 75% smashes, putting the League of Villains out of commission. Deku would turn around, serious, to see All Might's body laying on the ground. Bakugo looks at Deku, screaming,
All Might's dead! All Might's dead! All Might's dead! All Might's dead! Deku! All Might's dead! Snap out of it! Wake up! Wake up! All Might's dead! All Might's dead! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!
Deku stared on blankly. He didn't know what to do. He started crying out of his right eye, even though he didn't have one. That's when he realized. His right eye. It was there. He looked up to feel it, and he remembered the regen quirk. Did it have self-regenerating properties? As he stared on, he ran over to All Might. All For One just looked on, laughing, not even trying to attack the boy. He stared at All Might. All Might was being cradled in Deku's arms. Don't die, Toshinori. And he whispered something in Midoriya's ears. He said, I love you. Be the flame that I could never be. Yours will burn brighter than mine ever did. Become the symbol that the world needs. All Might then died. That was it. That was the end of the plan. It all worked out like All For One wanted. All Might was dead. Deku looked up at All For One, enraged. Tears of blood streaming out of his eyes as he transformed again. His three Tomoe evolved to a Mangekyo. Sharingan. 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 Deku burst off, this time 10 times faster than he ever did. Now with his newfound abilities, he was able to keep up with All For One.
He removed the eye patch, and all for one saw that he had 2 eyes. He chuckled. This was it. What he had wanted. Maybe this would help Shigaraki. Maybe he can formulate a new plan. Boom! Left, right. He was getting hit by all directions from Deku. Deku stepped back. Using his eyes, he flinched them. An Amaterasu flame burst from his right and from his left. He was able to pool all the gravity in one area, creating a Tsubaki Tensai. Deku having overwhelming power was not going to be enough, however. All for One was more experienced in battle. He had just killed All Might, so now he was filled with adrenaline and was able to back Deku up into a corner. Bakugo and the rest of his classmates just watched on in awe. There wasn't much they could really do. This was way beyond any of their levels. That's when Deku's father arrived on the scene. You see, the news had captured all of this, everything that was happening. And Deku's father was worried sick about him for weeks after he'd been disappeared and captured again. He wouldn't let it happen again. He arrived on the scene and activated his Mangekyo Sharingan. The father and son duo faced off against All for One. And this time, he was going down. Deku sustaining massive injuries during the battle, like getting his arm cut in half by All for One, regened, and the battle would continue. He would fight as hard as possible and would end the battle with a bang. Screaming in pain, having his arm blown to shreds, he did it once again. United States of the Smash! And with that, All Might's legacy could live on. The dust cleared, the battle over. Most of the League of Villains were seized. However, Kurigiri and Shigaraki managed to escape alongside Dabi, Toga, and Twice. Spinner was taken in custody, and the rest of the League was taken in custody, now leaving them even more crippled than they was in the original. Deku was harmed greatly, but with his newfound power, he was able to heal himself. The combination of One for All, this new healing quirk without a name, and the Sharingan was a deadly duo. He was unfortunately not able to heal All Might. The injuries he sustained during battle were enough to kill him. However, Gran Torino, on the other hand, was savable. He saved him, and now he wallowed in his own despair, realizing what he had done, and that maybe Shigaraki was right. Maybe he wasn't the hero of this story. Maybe he was the villain. Everything he had done had led up to this point. Was it even worth it? He walked in, running towards his mother. But by the time he had made it, she was already gone too. The stress from the news, everything that had happened to him, was enough to drive her over the edge. And she died. Deku would have to live with this for the rest of his life, knowing he had ended the symbol of peace. The man who had done everything for him. I don't know how he'll move on, but he will. This is the end of his tale.
Anyway guys, that's the end of the part, the finale, the movie. It's over. I know this is a pretty bitter ending, but I think it's what Deku kind of deserved. I was gonna go a little more sweet, and the baseline of the story, the ending is actually a lot more sweet. And the end of the baseline of the story, maybe I'll save that for another time, because I have the baseline of the story, and I did the baseline of the story, like the ending of the baseline. Remember I told you guys, this was a completely different script at the beginning. Around 2 months ago, I created the finale script. It was a lot longer, first of all, and it had a sweet ending where everything works out. If you guys want to see that version of the story, tell me down in the comments. Can we get that version? Can we get that version? And if we get enough comments and if this video gets enough support, I think I can drop that version of the finale, which actually goes on until the war arc. And so we might be able to get that if you guys really want it. And a lot of stuff had to be cut because of time constraints. I wanted this story to be around like 45 minutes solid, a solid finale, great episode, 45-minute series special. I wanted it to be like that, because the original script was probably over an hour long. It went more into detail of all of Deku's visions. Remember the one that happened in UA when he saw the 3 figures that all had Sharingans? That had a lot to do with that version of the story. His dad was more integral, but I wanted everything to link in. I think everything linked in perfectly here. All the visions worked out perfectly. His dad came in and helped him at the end. Yeah, but that's it. If you guys enjoyed, like I say at the end of all videos, like and subscribe, all the fun jazz. I'll see you in the next one.